That's my cousin Chung Feng. Lu Yi pointed to a young man in the distance and said timidly. The young man wore a blue robe, his black hair neatly tied back, giving him quite a handsome appearance. At the moment, he was chatting with a young junior girl who had just passed the entrance test and was about to enter Celestial Tiger Academy. Senior Chung Feng, I'll be counting on you to look after me at the academy, the junior girl said in a soft and sweet voice, full of coquettish charm. Don't worry, junior sister Zhang Yao. Once you join our Windrain Alliance, I won't say we can do whatever we want, but among the new students, we'll definitely be untouchable, Chung Feng replied confidently. As he was getting into the rhythm of his boasting, he suddenly felt a hand pat his shoulder. Who is it? Chung Feng turned around impatiently and looked at Su Zimo's group. Are you Chung Feng? Little Gue asked with a smile. Yeah, what's it to you? Chung Feng frowned and replied. Then we've got the right guy. Little Gue nodded, then suddenly threw a punch. Caught off guard, Chung Feng was knocked to the ground by the sucker punch, followed by a brutal beatdown from both Little Gue and Lin Ruhu. Even though Chung Feng was a martial artist at the Meridian Forging realm, every time spirit force surged through his body to fight back, it was immediately suppressed by the duo. Who are you people? You must have the wrong guy. I am Chung Feng. Chung Feng cried out while covering his head. That's right, we're beating you up, Little Gue said, still unsatisfied. He then took out his iron rod. What are you doing? If you don't stop, I'll report you to the teachers. The junior girl beside them shouted in a panic. Since there were too many students gathered on this open ground, minor scuffles didn't attract much attention. After all, anyone who disrupted order publicly would be immediately disqualified from Celestial Tiger Academy, and in previous years, no one dared to start a fight during admissions. You want to keep screaming? I'll beat you up too. Su Zimo glared at the junior girl and threatened fiercely. She instantly turned pale and stood silently to the side, too scared to speak another word. Though it looked like a savage beating, Little Gue and Lin Ruhu were actually holding back, inflicting only some superficial pain and bruising. Looking at the swollen and bruised Chung Feng, Little Gue grabbed him by the collar and lifted him in front of Su Zimo. Take me to the inner courtyard of the academy, Su Zimo ordered. What are you trying to do? Chung Feng asked casually. Su Zimo waved his hand, not wanting to say another word. Clearly, this guy had no idea what kind of trouble he was in. If it could be handled with fists, there was no need for talking. Little Gue, looking fierce, was about to give Chung Feng another round of beating. Frightened, Chung Feng struggled and shouted, Don't hit me. I rely on my looks to make a living. I'll take you, okay? At the entrance of Celestial Tiger Academy, an array formation had been set up specifically to verify student identities. Each student had an identity token, and when they entered the academy, a seed of their spirit force was left in the formation. To enter the academy, a student's token and their current spirit force must match the stored energy exactly. This method was strict, but not without its flaws. Standing at the academy gates, Chung Feng passed the identity test, causing the formation to open a small opening. Su Zimo and his group quickly slipped inside. Celestial Tiger Academy wasn't particularly concerned about intruders, since it was purely an academic institution with nothing to be coveted. Even if there were forbidden areas within the academy, sneaking in didn't mean you could access them. I brought you inside. Can I go now? Chung Feng asked cautiously. Standing inside Celestial Tiger Academy, surrounded by its grand architecture, one could finally feel its awe-inspiring presence. The academy was divided into 3 grades. First-year students were mostly at the Spirit Meridian realm and wore light blue robes. Second-year students were at the Meridian Forging realm, and their uniforms changed to deep blue. Third-year seniors were at the True Meridian and Desolate Meridian realms. They wore purple robes and were powerful enough to graduate and venture out into the world. After all, even families like the Chong clan in Skysword City and the Situ clan in Imperial Gate City had top warriors only at the True Meridian realm. Take me to the Academy's honor tablet, Su Zimo said flatly. Chung Feng hesitated, unsure of why Su Zimo's group wanted to go there, but still obediently led the way. The honor tablet was a must-see for every student entering Celestial Tiger Academy. This modest stone tablet carried the Academy's glory spanning thousands of years. Standing tens of meters tall, the massive tablet radiated a powerful presence, creating an oppressive feeling for anyone standing beneath it. Its jet-black surface was engraved with countless names. These names belonged to the students who once graduated from Celestial Tiger Academy, symbols of the school's honor. Sword Elder, Three-Eyed True Lord, Celestial Tiger Progenitor. Looking at the names, many of them very familiar, one couldn't help but feel awed. Though they may not have shone like emperors, every name here had a legendary story behind it. To have one's name etched on this stone meant making a significant contribution to the Academy, or becoming a continent-renowned powerhouse. What about him? Should we kill him? Little Gue asked Su Zimo, pointing to Chung Feng. We're not bloodthirsty demons. No need to kill over every little thing. Su Zimo shook his head. He felt Little Gue had become a bit too ruthless since joining him. Little Gue formed a blade with his right hand and lightly chopped Chung Feng on the neck, knocking him unconscious and tossing him to the side. Keep watch and make sure no one comes near, Su Zimo instructed. Then he used a blade to cut his fingertip, letting his blood drip onto the tablet. Instantly, the stone tablet trembled, and the ground around it shook slightly. The entire stone began to emit a faint white glow. Faintly, one could hear the roar of a tiger echoing from deep within the forest. Ripples spread across the tablet's surface, like a dragonfly gently tapping the water. A pale white orb emerged from the tablet and floated beside Su Zimo. Eat it, Su Zimo said, tossing the orb to Lin Ruhu. Lin Ruhu examined the orb. It was pale white, with the image of a flying tiger etched on it. What is this? Lin Ruhu asked curiously, then swallowed the orb without hesitation. His trust in Su Zimo absolute. It's the 17th ranked battle physique on the 100 battle physiques list. The Celestial Tiger Tyrant Physique, Su Zimo said with a smile. Lin Ruhu froze for a moment, and then his expression completely changed. The moment the Celestial Tiger Tyrant Physique's orb entered Lin Ruhu's stomach, it transformed into a white skeleton, resembling the corpse of a Celestial Tiger Tyrant. Above the bones, a phantom appeared, lifting its head and letting out a heaven-shaking roar before merging completely into Lin Ruhu's body. A misty energy began spreading throughout his body, and externally, Lin Ruhu writhed on the ground in pain. Veins bulged across his face, and blood vessels became clearly visible. The crimson vessels looked horrifying, and his facial expression turned increasingly twisted. I gave you the opportunity. Survive this and you'll be reborn, Su Zimo said calmly, watching Lin Ruhu's suffering. Perhaps the pain eventually numbed him. Lin Ruhu managed to sit up and began circulating the strength scripture. Then, visible changes started to take place in his body. His hair turned completely white, disheveled and wild around his head. White markings appeared on his face, and his eyes turned fierce, like a tiger locked onto its prey. His muscles swelled up, and even his height increased by a few centimeters. Lin Ruhu slowly stood, exhaling a long breath of white mist. He looked at his transformed body, then turned to Su Zimo, visibly emotional. Enough, swallow your thanks. I don't need it, Su Zimo said with a smile. Revert to normal. This form draws too much attention. Lin Ruhu nodded and dispelled the battle form, returning to his original appearance. The overwhelming sense of power gradually faded. Let's go. We need to leave before the disturbance draws attention. With that, Su Zimo led Lin Ruhu and Little Gue out of Celestial Tiger Academy's inner courtyard. The honor tablet returned to its tranquil state, as if nothing had ever happened. Everyone familiar with Celestial Tiger Academy believed that the honor tablet was built after the academy was founded, to commemorate students who had made great contributions or achieved extraordinary feats. In truth, only the earliest founders of the academy knew. The stone tablet had existed long before the school was built. After the academy was established, many people examined the stone, but none discovered anything unusual. so the school designated it as an honor tablet. Thousands of years later, a great war erupted at Celestial Tiger Academy. At that time, a brilliant prodigy emerged within the academy, having fused with the 69th ranked Blue Wolf battle physique from the 100 battle physiques. He valiantly led the then fragile academy in resisting the invaders. But in the end, due to a vast difference in power, the battle was lost. The prodigy fell before the tablet, his blood spilling across the honor tablet. Under the blazing sun, the names of countless predecessors engraved on the stone glowed golden. Then the tablet changed, the Celestial Tiger Tyrant physique was released. Only much later did people realize that the Celestial Tiger Tyrant physique had been sealed within the stone and could only be unlocked by the blood of someone who had fused with one of the 100 battle physiques. Of course, that was the story from Su Zimo's previous life. In this life, that war had yet to reach Celestial Tiger Academy. But because Su Zimo had fused with the hell-suppressing deity physique, his blood naturally had the power to break the seal. Life is full of drama. In a previous life, the Azure Cloud battle physique was unearthed casually beneath a tree at the village entrance by 13 bandits from Cloud Chain Town. Yet for generations, even emperors had searched for it in vain. That's why people often say that the emergence of a battle body has less to do with strength and more with luck and fate. As for Su Zimo, he didn't rely on luck or fate. He simply possessed memories of a past life. But that alone was like the butterfly effect. A butterfly flaps its wings and triggers a tornado across the ocean. Or like the pig in the saying, when the wind blows hard enough, even pigs can fly. The trio left the inner courtyard and returned to the open area where new students were tested earlier. At that moment, something major seemed to have occurred. Shouts of astonishment echoed through the crowd. A sovereign-grade aptitude. This boy's future is bound to be extraordinary. Of course, out of all these people, only one has sovereign-grade aptitude. Didn't you see? Even the academy's vice dean was alerted. Seeing the crowd, Su Zimo and the others were about to leave but got curious and squeezed in for a look. At the center of the clearing stood a young man, a sword at his waist. His face was flushed with excitement, and his body was visibly trembling. Yuzha, have you made your decision? Are you willing to become my personal disciple? The vice dean asked, clearly satisfied. He wore a cyan robe, exuding an air of immortality. His white beard and gentle smile made him seem kind and approachable. But the pressure around him was palpable. The air near him seemed compressed, making others instinctively feel uneasy. I am willing, Yuzha stammered, then quickly knelt down. Our meeting as master and disciple is fate, the old man said with a pleased smile. Since I'm in good spirits today, I'll grant you a request. As long as it's not too much, I'll fulfill it. Think of it as your welcome gift. Hearing this, Yuzha was about to decline. After all, he didn't want to seem arrogant. Even if the teacher was willing to offer something, he felt it improper to accept so boldly. But then, Yuzha's gaze inadvertently landed on Su Zimo and the others among the spectators. His expression darkened instantly. The resentment and humiliation from yesterday surged back. He lowered his head slightly and respectfully said to the elder, Teacher, I don't ask for much, only that our academy expel those three and refuse them admission. Following Yuzha's finger, Su Zimo froze. Turning to little Gue, he asked, Is that kid talking about us? Little Gue nodded. What the hell? We're just randomly making enemies now? Su Zimo asked, puzzled. Senior brother? Did you forget? Little Gue replied quickly. Last night we had nowhere to stay, so we kicked him and his dad out of their room. He's probably looking for payback. What am I, some celebrity? I'm supposed to remember every random punk. Su Zimo shot little Gue a glare. Besides, you're the one who took the room. What's it got to do with me? Hearing this, little Gue was momentarily stunned. What the hell? No shame at all. You're the one who told me that whoever has the bigger fist gets the room. Now you're pretending it had nothing to do with you. And that's scapegoating so practiced. Of course, these words stayed in little Gue's heart. He wouldn't dare say them aloud. All he could do was nod meekly like a wronged wife, fully agreeing with Su Zimo's version of events. The elder glanced at Su Zimo and his companions, looking rather troubled. Although he was the academy's vice dean, expelling students in front of such a large crowd would damage the academy's reputation. After all, these people had traveled great distances to take the entrance test. If Yuzha had spoken to him about this in private, he might have considered it. But with so many eyes watching, the elder had to think about both the academy's image and his own. Yuzha seemed to notice the elder's hesitation and quickly added, "Teacher, I'm not trying to target them on purpose. It's just that their conduct is improper. Last night, they arrived late and didn't have a room. They took advantage of their numbers, slandered me, and stole my room. How can people like that be admitted into the academy? That would only tarnish our reputation." The elder nodded in agreement upon hearing Yuzha's explanation and walked towards Su Zimo's group. The crowd parted to create a path, and Su Zimo watched it all with a calm, amused expression. "What he said just now, was it true?" the elder asked sternly, his presence overwhelming and deep as the ocean. "While I'd love to say, don't slander people without proof, I thought about it and figured, why bother?" Su Zimo replied with a smile. "It's true. So what? Where are you from?" The elder frowned, displeased with Su Zimo's attitude. "True martial sacred ground," Little Gue answered proudly from the side. The moment he spoke, those in the crowd who had been waiting to watch the drama unfold were all stunned. Compared to Celestial Tiger Academy, the name of True Martial Sacred Ground was far more illustrious and prestigious. Ever since the man named Zhen Wu founded the sect tens of thousands of years ago, the sect had been like a blazing sun over the entire western region. Even during the sect's low points, before the reign of Grand Empress Hongtian, no one dared to challenge it. Even during the era of the Grand Emperor Shenri, who bore the heaven's will, he still treated True Martial Sacred Ground with respect. Of course, Celestial Tiger Academy's philosophy was to teach all, regardless of background, be they heirs of great clans or mere beggars from the roadside. As long as they passed the entrance test, they could be admitted. But in reality, disciples of major sects rarely cared to attend the academy. "Since you admit what happened, we at Celestial Tiger Academy cannot accept you," the elder said with a grim face. "No need for you to say it," Su Zimo replied with a light chuckle. "Even if your academy wanted to recruit me, I wouldn't join." "What do you mean by that?" A flash of light passed through the elder's eyes as a powerful aura of the true Meridian realm steadily rose from his body. "You're rejecting a student solely because of a flaw in their conduct? What is a school for? What is the duty of a teacher?" Su Zimo laughed and slowly said, "A teacher's job is to pass on knowledge, explain principles, and resolve confusion. If everyone were already gifted and well-behaved, why come to school? Isn't your responsibility to plant the seed today and nurture a tree over 100 years? And by the way, I've taken a look around your school. The students you've trained aren't exactly impressive." The elder was silent for a long moment before slowly replying, "Young man, don't speak too arrogantly. How about this?" Su Zimo turned to the crowd, then said to the elder, "Let your academy's strongest student come out and fight me. I'm just an ordinary outer court disciple from True Martial Sacred Ground. I'm not betting anything. I just want to prove a point." "Prove what? That you look down on my students?" The elder snorted coldly. No, don't misunderstand." Su Zimo quickly waved his hands and grinned. "I'm not targeting any specific person here. I'm saying all of you are trash." As soon as he finished speaking, the elder's face darkened, and the students erupted into chaos. Glaring eyes, clenched fists, and indignant roars. Everyone was furious at Su Zimo's arrogance. "Fine then, don't say I didn't give you a chance," Su Zimo smiled. "Pick your strongest student. If he can make me take even one step back, I'll admit defeat. Go get one of the heaven-ranking students," the elder said after a short pause, turning to the teacher in charge of the test. His tone was calm, but there was a storm brewing beneath that calm, a stillness before a violent tempest. Inside Celestial Tiger Academy, there were two student rankings, the Heaven ranking and the Earth ranking. The Heaven ranking was exclusively for third-year senior students. It listed the top 100 strongest among them. The competition was fierce, and the rankings changed often. Not long after, a young man in a purple robe strode over confidently. He carried a long spear on his back, his expression stern and unyielding, walking with the rigid posture of a trained soldier. The spear on his back was 7 feet long, entirely black. Its tip was forged from high-grade black tortoise iron and gleamed with a chilling, deadly light. Along the spear's shaft was a carved silver dragon with 8 claws, so fierce it looked ready to burst from the weapon at any moment. "Vice Dean," the youth greeted respectfully upon approaching the elder. "Vice Dean, the top 3 Heaven-ranking students are still out training and haven't returned yet," the searching teacher said. "This one is ranked 4th on the Heaven ranking, at the peak of the true Meridian realm, an elite among our senior students." The elder nodded. Anyone who made the Heaven ranking was undoubtedly extraordinary, especially those in the top 10. Still, he couldn't help feeling some regret. The top 3 were all in the desolate Meridian realm, true monsters. The youth stepped forward towards Su Zimo and said coldly, "Heaven rank number 4, Zhang Xianjun. You'll need to survive 3 of my moves before you're worthy of knowing my name." Su Zimo replied with a smile and shook his head. Zhang Xianjun studied him for a moment, then snorted and slowly unslung the long spear from his back. The crowd instinctively backed away, giving the 2 enough room to fight. "Can Senior Zhang really handle this guy?" a newly admitted student asked curiously. "Yeah, that guy's so arrogant he must be strong." An older student who knew the situation sneered and explained, "Senior Zhang is ranked 4th on the Heaven ranking, though he's not on par with the top 3 monsters. He did create his own 3-move technique called Threefold Spear Art. Just watch." He created his own technique? The new students were stunned. To them, who had just started their cultivation journey, even practicing someone else's technique was difficult, let alone inventing their own. "I once observed the rising and falling of tides, the drifting of clouds, the cycle of day and night, and from this I created the Threefold Spear Art," Zhang Xianjun declared with bold energy. With his long spear in hand, his entire aura shifted. He now resembled a spear himself, sharp and defiant, as if he could tear open the heavens. Raising his voice, full of unwavering momentum, he shouted, "Please give me your guidance." The instant his voice fell, his aura surged forth like an unstoppable tidal wave, crashing towards Su Zimo with overwhelming pressure. It was a psychological attack, a show of might intended to make Su Zimo surrender before the fight even began. But Su Zimo simply smiled, allowing the turbulent waves of pressure to wash over him again and again, utterly unfazed. A spear's momentum rises at first strike, weakens at the second, and fades at the third. Zhang Xianjun's expression darkened. He swiftly swung his spear and lunged toward Su Zimo. Threefold Spear Art, First Form, Dawn's Light. The spear's tip gleamed with radiant brilliance, like a beam of white light piercing the darkness. Dawn breaks and all creation lies still. This strike was filled with hope and limitless imagination. The white light expanded in Su Zimo's vision. "Interesting," Su Zimo smiled with intrigue. He didn't even bother to dodge or draw his sword. Instead, he casually raised his scabbard, letting dark energy of annihilation swirl around it. This was the Annihilation Force, cultivated from the Annihilation Codex passed down by the Grand Emperor Sandao. Watching the spear, sharp enough to tear the air, streak toward him, Su Zimo gently tapped the spear with his scabbard. That single, seemingly casual strike hit the technique's weakest point. The radiant white light instantly collapsed. The spear trembled violently, and Zhang Xianjun's hands went numb. He nearly dropped his weapon. He quickly retreated, took a deep breath, and gripped the spear tighter. Threefold Spear Art, Second Form, Blazing Sun. Zhang Xianjun roared again and charged forward. This strike burned like the midday sun, radiating blinding golden light, exploding like a fireball right in front of them. It embodied passion and brilliance, like fireworks exploding from a rooftop. willing to sacrifice everything for a fleeting moment of glory. Zhang Xianjun had no path to retreat. He would either shatter all barriers in this frenzy or self-destruct in a desperate blaze. As the blazing sun rose, its scorching heat charged toward Su Zimo with all its might. The surrounding air began to melt away. Su Zimo pointed with his scabbard again. This time, sharp blade intent pierced through everything. The blazing sun was instantly torn apart. The light faded, the spear's brilliance and refinement dimmed. But even so, Zhang Xianjun had already committed. With no choice left, he traced a half-circle upward with his spear. A dark red energy flared across the air, scorching everything. Space itself was carved with long, visible white trails. Threefold spear art, third form, dusk's end. If the first strike, dawn's light, symbolized the beginning, hope awakening as the sun rises, and the second strike, blazing sun, represented the day's peak, its heat overwhelming, burning, and seeking to devour all. Then this third form, dusk's end, was the final act. All things fade. Dusk watches the horizon in solitude, where sunset merges with twilight, all shrouded in approaching darkness. From light to heat, from birth to annihilation. Desolation intertwined with collapse, this strike seemed to end everything, to bring all existence to its final point. To Su Zimo it wasn't much, but to the newly initiated students watching, it carried a unique aura, a vivid impression. They truly felt like they had witnessed the arc of a day, its rise and its inevitable end. Zhang Xianjun's lofty words before the fight echoed once more in everyone's ears. I've watched the ebb and flow of the tide, the dance of clouds. I've witnessed the day begin and return again, witnessed oceans turn into mulberry fields, watched the first light of dawn, watched the blazing sun rise, watched dusk reflected across the horizon, watched birds spiral in endless void, and I've seen the end. As his third strike fell, the entire space seemed to compress and explode from the pressure. Air currents blasted outward and split into countless energy arrows. Su Zimo smiled faintly. He finally drew his weapon, Shadow Tyrant. This strike was worth getting serious for. Since his rebirth, he had only revealed one move, the sword-drawing technique. Or more accurately, a blade-drawing technique, a strike that relied not on power but speed. In his past life, Su Zimo created countless battle techniques. Many were eventually discarded as his cultivation advanced. But some remained with him through every battle, enduring even to his God Meridian realm days, still terrifying in power. This blade art he had named the 19 Forms of Tao Seeking. Consisted of 19 forms. The first form started from nothing, so basic, so crude it looked like a child playing around, random and unrefined. The second form was drifting on green duckweed. As the curved blade danced casually before them, a deep dong echoed, as if something profound had just been planted. Blade and spear collided. The spear carried majestic force, intent on destroying all. The curved blade seemed simple and unremarkable, yet unshakable like Mount Tai. Third form, 100 battles, never broken. Fourth form, rising against the current. The early moves of the 19 forms of Tao Seeking were not impressive, perhaps even weaker than many ordinary grade techniques. More accurately, the early forms were about accumulation and preparation. Like a seed, the first form dug the pit, the second planted it, the third watered it, the fourth fertilized it, the fifth was when the seed began to sprout. Once the buildup reached its peak, the forms that followed grew exponentially more powerful. Your brute force might crush a seed, but you cannot shake a towering tree. Blade and spear were locked in deadlock. Sparks flew wildly, and waves of energy shattered into the air. Su Zimo remained calm. He smiled at Zhang Xianjun and softly uttered the next words. Fifth form, windstorm rises. Though he spoke quietly, the words carried immense, crushing power. Zhang Xianjun's expression changed dramatically. He tried to dodge, but it was too late. With the momentum of the first 4 forms behind it, the fifth form erupted like a wild windstorm over a desolate wasteland. burying the world in choking dust. A mad, boundless, unstoppable force surged from Su Zimo's blade. A great wind swept up 10,000 miles of red dust. The seed had broken through the earth. The boundless momentum burst forth from Su Zimo's blade shadow, carrying a force as if it could tear apart heaven and earth. A massive arc of blade light formed in the sky. Zhang Xianjun, standing opposite, felt an unstoppable force crashing toward him. His spear shattered clean in two. The shockwave felt like it was ripping his entire body apart. He was sent flying backward, his clothes torn to shreds, his body covered in countless wounds. A mouthful of blood sprayed into the air. His entire body was dyed red, and the moment he hit the ground, he lost consciousness. Su Zimo calmly sheathed his blade, Shadow Tyrant, and glanced at the stunned students around him. Then he looked at the elder nearby and smiled faintly. Not a single one worth fighting. The elder remained silent for a moment before slowly speaking. You're probably not just an outer court disciple, are you? Does that matter? What matters is that the students you've trained really aren't that impressive. Su Zimo chuckled, then said to little Gue and Lin Ruhu, let's go. Time to return to the sect. As the three of them walked away, the crowd remained silent. What Su Zimo initially intended was just to help Lin Ruhu acquire a battle physique, but he hadn't expected the world to feel this small. Sometimes, even if you want to stay low-key, your strength just won't allow it. The elder looked at Yuzha, who now wore a panicked expression. He clearly hadn't expected things to turn out like this. Teacher, Yuzha said timidly. What? Worried I'll take this out on you. The elder looked at him and shook his head with a smile. In truth, none of us were wrong in this situation. You just wanted justice for the grievance you felt. Nothing wrong with that. And I, even as the vice dean, had personal bias too. Standing up for my student wasn't wrong either. Our only mistake was that we weren't strong enough. Our fists weren't big enough. Train harder in the future. Our Celestial Tiger Academy is backed by the Heavenly Tao Academy. If you have talent and drive, we can give you the stage and the opportunity. The elder had seen much in his life. His perspective and attitude were far more mature than those of the young students. I'll work hard, teacher. Yuzha responded firmly, a warm current flowing through his heart. The elder nodded with satisfaction. Failure isn't something to fear. Even grand emperors experienced hardships and setbacks in their youth. What's truly scary is when someone fails and still refuses to change, insisting on making the same mistakes. Su Zimo and the others returned to the inn, brought out their soaring sand horses, and the three set off for True Martial Sacred Ground. At the time, True Martial Sacred Ground was particularly lively due to the arrival of new disciples. Every year, some of the newcomers stood out, and they would challenge the senior disciples for their positions. In the outer court of True Martial Sacred Ground, there was a ranking known as the Crouching Tiger List, similar to the Heaven ranking at Celestial Tiger Academy. It selected the top 100 outer court disciples based on strength. Those who made it onto the list not only gained widespread recognition but also received monthly rewards from the sect. The higher the rank, the greater the reward. White clouds drifted across the sky as a gentle breeze followed the sunset westward. The sky was dyed a dark crimson, and the last traces of daylight melted into the horizon. After returning to the sect, Su Zimo went back to South Goose Mountain, while little Gue took care of submitting their completed mission from 10 Mile Town. As for Lin Ruhu, he went to find his sweetheart, none other than the daughter of the 7th Grand Elder. After returning to True Martial Sacred Ground, Su Zimo first visited his father, Su Qingshan, to report on his journey. Of course, he kept certain things hidden, like the Nightmare Beast and the Sky Fiend Tiger Body, since he wasn't ready to reveal that he had been reborn. Celestial Tiger Academy may not be great, but its name carries weight. Try not to stir up too much trouble in the future, Su Qingshan told him. That said, we may not start trouble, but we're never afraid of it either. Su Zimo nodded, though whether he could actually follow through was another matter. He knew that ever since his father became the one in charge of True Martial Sacred Ground, he had made decisions with the sect's interests in mind. Oh, by the way, Su Qingshan added. In a few days, the 7th Grand Elder will be leading a group to attend the Inner Court tournament at Sacred Spring Sect. Do you want to go along? Su Zimo paused. Sacred Spring Sect was a top-tier sect in the Western region and essentially a vassal of true martial sacred ground. It was common for sects to invite others to observe internal competitions. This helped strengthen bonds and show off their strength. When true martial sacred ground held its own inner court tournaments, it often invited Divine Sun Sacred Sect, Sacred Spring Sect, and other allies to watch. These inter-sect exchanges were frequent. Doesn't sound very interesting. I'll pass, Su Zimo replied casually. He remembered that in his past life, Sacred Spring Sect had some decent talent, but nothing monstrous. You should go. You've stayed within the sect your whole life. It's time you saw more of the world, Su Qingshan said. All right then, Su Zimo nodded. Since his father had spoken, he didn't mind going. Unlike others, he didn't need to train tirelessly every day. As long as his foundation was solid, his cultivation could soar like a rocket. Leaving Green Mountain, Su Zimo returned to South Goose Mountain. The two maids, Chun Xiao and Xiaqiu, had already prepared hot water. With their help, Su Zimo took a relaxing bath, letting his whole body unwind. Soon after, Lin Ruhu arrived with the 7th Grand Elder's daughter, Mu Qingqing, at South Goose Mountain. In Su Zimo's memory, Mu Qingqing had always been a bit of a bossy figure, which explained Lin Ruhu's peculiar taste. In terms of looks, Mu Qingqing wasn't ugly. She was a little plump, but you could call it voluptuous. What really left an impression on Su Zimo was her personality. Put nicely, she was open and straightforward. Put bluntly, she was fierce. He remembered once during their childhood, when the Grand Elder's grandson mocked Mu Qingqing for being chubby. She chased him around true martial sacred ground with a 3-meter-long broadsword, making him run half the sect. Ever since then, that kid had been terrified of her. Su Zimo, next time you guys go out, make sure you take me with you, Mu Qingqing shouted carelessly, completely at ease. She wore a light green dress, her long black hair loosely tied behind her with a pink ribbon. Her round cheeks gave her a baby-faced look, not the type to stun at first glance, but the kind whose charm grew the more you looked at her. We weren't out having fun, it was a mission, Su Zimo said with a smile. He definitely didn't dare bring Mu Qingqing along. With her personality, the entire journey would be chaotic. Later, Su Zimo pulled Lin Ruhu aside and quietly said, In a few days, I'll be going to Sacred Spring Sect with the 7th Grand Elder. Do you want to come along? I promised Qingqing I'd take her to the town outside the sect to stroll around, Lin Ruhu replied, a little conflicted. No worries. I'll just go with little Gui then, Su Zimo said with a smile. Then, after a brief pause, he spoke more seriously. Ruhu, have you ever thought about the path you want to walk in the future? If you want to follow me and bear the burden of destiny, to become my first general, I won't oppose you having relationships, but I hope you understand your priorities. Don't let your cultivation fall behind. But if you don't have a burning desire for the pinnacle of martial arts, then I hope you can live life the way you want. With the protection of true martial sacred ground, and with me around, I can guarantee you a peaceful life. Just as Lin Ruhu was about to respond, Su Zimo raised his hand and said, You don't need to answer now. Think it over carefully. What does your heart truly desire? Tell me when I return from the Sacred Spring Sect. Lin Ruhu remained silent for a moment, then nodded firmly. Watching Lin Ruhu and Mu Qingqing leave, Su Zimo let out a long breath. He went alone to the peak of South Goose Mountain, where cold winds blew like blades across the mountaintop. They say the path of the Tao is walked alone, and the road of martial arts is lonely. Why is it that so many people set off with you from the starting line, but only you are left at the finish? Some fall due to lack of talent, their lifespan exhausted, leaving behind only bones on this path. Others simply don't aspire to the peak of martial arts. They meet someone they love and choose to live life their own way. Not everyone's dreams and goals are to reach the pinnacle of cultivation. That's why Su Zimo had to help Lin Ruhu understand his own heart. In his previous life, Su Zimo hadn't paid much attention to Lin Ruhu. The boy had always stood silently by his side, offering support without complaint. He hadn't even known about Lin Ruhu's feelings for Mu Qingqing until this life. If Lin Ruhu's aspirations lay elsewhere, Su Zimo wouldn't force anything. With his abilities, he could ensure Ruhu lived a peaceful, safe life. But if Lin Ruhu chose to follow him to battle across the skies, through endless hells, to shoulder the weight of heaven's will, then Su Zimo would not let him down. The celestial tiger tyrant physique had been obtained precisely with Ruhu's future in mind. Su Zimo didn't see himself as someone overly sentimental. His goals had never been clearer. To bear the heaven's will. As for what came after that, he didn't know yet. Was the end of the martial path becoming the Grand Emperor? To Su Zimo, an emperor was just one brilliant checkpoint along the path of cultivation. The human body had 12 meridian gates, and even God Meridian Realm cultivators only opened 8. He didn't believe that Grand Emperors had opened all 12 and transcended the mortal species to obtain unimaginable power. So where had the Grand Emperors of the past gone? What were they truly pursuing? After calming his mind, Su Zimo returned to his courtyard. Little Gue had just come back from submitting their mission. Anything happening in the court lately? Su Zimo asked. Nothing major, Little Gue replied. Just a lot of activity in the outer court with the new disciples arriving. The Crouching Tiger list has been updated several times. The ones you told me to watch, there's a guy named Yen Buhui who climbed to 11th place on the list in just half a month. That guy Gao Xiong also made it to 23rd. As for the 6th Grand Elder's niece, Bai Li Xiao, she hasn't shown much, keeps a low profile. Those twin sisters, Xue Qianxue and Xue Mengmeng, are now her personal maids. The script's really playing out exactly like my previous life, Su Zimo chuckled. Oh right, senior brother. Little Gue suddenly remembered. Some disciples said that not long after you left, a girl named Ji Baiyu came to the court asking for you. Su Zimo blinked in surprise. Last time in Sky Sword City, he'd promised to help Ji Baiyu join true martial sacred ground. But with everything that had happened since, he'd completely forgotten, until Little Gue reminded him. Where is she now? Su Zimo asked. Since her identity couldn't be confirmed, the sect arranged for her to stay at Heroes Mountain, Little Gue replied. Bring her here, Su Zimo said after thinking for a moment. Heroes Mountain was where the sect housed guests and outsiders. Not long after, Ji Baiyu arrived at South Goose Mountain, storming in furiously behind Little Gue. She hadn't changed much, but there was an added charm to her presence now. Dressed in a tight blue long robe, her graceful figure was accentuated in full. Su Zimo smiled but didn't speak first. Ji Baiyu glared at him, clearly seething with anger, but remained silent as well. Noticing Little Gue's eyes practically glowing with gossip, Su Zimo raised an eyebrow and said, Can't you tell your boss is about to speak? Why are you still standing there like a fool? I was just worried about you, senior brother. Little Gue chuckled and quickly ran off. Where have you been all this time? Ji Baiyu finally asked, her tone filled with restrained anger. What missed me? Su Zimo grinned. You promised me something, and now you've made me wait this long. Ji Baiyu took a deep breath to calm herself. I told you to come on the day we recruited new disciples. You missed it, that's not my fault. Su Zimo shrugged. I'm not going to waste my time waiting for you. Fine, I'm here now, Ji Baiyu said. You better honor your promise. You already missed the recruitment window, and with your cultivation already at True Meridian Realm, the outer court isn't even suitable for you, Su Zimo replied. I'll have to place you in the inner court. Inner court is fine, Ji Baiyu nodded. She had come seeking protection. Joining the true martial sacred ground was all that mattered. Let me finish, Su Zimo continued. If I just put you into the inner court without a reason, people will gossip, and it'll cost me a lot of social capital. Shouldn't you offer some compensation? Compensation? Ji Baiyu's expression changed. Wasn't the imperial blood I gave you enough? Huh? Imperial blood? What imperial blood? Su Zimo looked confused. When did I ever take anything like that? You. Ji Baiyu pointed at Su Zimo, speechless with rage. She finally gritted her teeth and spat out 2 words. Shameless bastard. Say whatever you want, but the choice is yours, Su Zimo said calmly. If you want to join true martial sacred ground, you'll need to compensate me for burning through a lot of connections. Or you can leave right now. I won't stop you. Ji Baiyu fell silent for a moment, biting her lip before asking, what kind of compensation do you want? You've got Grand Emperor Fei Yu's inheritance, don't you? Su Zimo asked with a smile. What are you trying to do? Ji Baiyu instinctively grew alert. But as soon as she said that, she realized she was being too obvious and quickly added, no, I don't. You should know about the Featherflight Steel, right? Su Zimo continued, unfazed. Nope, never heard of it. Never seen it. Ji Baiyu replied firmly, a rapid-fire triple denial. As long as you give me 3,000 pieces of Featherflight crystals each month, I'll help you stay in true martial sacred ground, Su Zimo said. You don't have to answer right now. If you're unwilling, you can leave immediately. The Featherflight Steel had originally been a nameless stone monument, standing in one of the 10 forbidden grounds, the Infernal Ghost Sea. After Grand Emperor Fei Yu received the Heaven's Will, he made a special trip to the Infernal Ghost Sea, uprooted the monument, claimed it as his own, and named it the Featherflight Steel. Though it didn't possess much offensive power, it had one function that made it incredibly coveted. It could produce Featherflight crystals. As long as it had enough spirit crystals to power it, it could generate them endlessly. Featherflight crystals were specifically used to enhance enlightenment and inspiration. With their help, cultivators could drastically accelerate their progress in understanding techniques and martial skills. For someone like Su Zimo, who wanted to walk his own martial path, these crystals weren't just convenient, they were highly valuable. Not quite doubling his results for half the effort, but close. This was one of the treasures Grand Emperor Fei Yu had intended to leave behind for future generations before his ascension. Su Zimo wasn't worried about Ji Baiyu refusing. He knew she needed the protection of true martial sacred ground. Years ago, several forces had joined together to annihilate Ji Baiyu's clan in order to seize Grand Emperor Fei Yu's legacy. She had fled from the northern continent to the western region of the eastern continent, intending to grow stronger and eventually return to take her revenge. But she hadn't had time to grow stronger. Her enemies had already found her trail. So now, seeking shelter from true martial was her only option. It was a tragedy, really. During Grand Emperor Fei Yu's reign, the Ji clan basked in unmatched glory. Yet even the bloodline of an emperor could fall into decline. 3,000 Featherflight crystals is too much. I can give you 300 at most, Ji Baiyu said after thinking for a moment. Fine, 500 it is. Su Zimo nodded. I'll take the loss. Let's call it friendship. I said 300. Ji Baiyu blinked in confusion, thinking he hadn't heard her properly. What? 1,000? Su Zimo blinked too, then nodded sincerely. I see. That's a heavy-hearted gesture. I graciously accept. Ji Baiyu felt like she had 1,000 question marks floating over her head, with 10,000 wild beasts stampeding through her mind. After a long silence, Ji Baiyu realized her understanding of Su Zimo's shamelessness had just reached a new level. She took a breath, steadied her temper, and said, 300, no more. 500 crystals a month, Su Zimo replied flatly. Seeing that Ji Baiyu still wanted to argue, he snorted and said coldly, let me make one thing clear. You don't have the right to choose. I could easily capture you right now, and believe me, I have plenty of ways to extract the secrets of Grand Emperor Fei Yu's inheritance. The only reason I haven't is because his legacy doesn't interest me that much. Ji Baiyu thought Su Zimo was just completely unpredictable. One moment he was joking around, and the next he was completely ruthless. Fine. 500, she said bitterly before storming off. She didn't want to stay a second longer, nor say another word to him. After Ji Baiyu left, little Gue entered the room and said, Senior brother, there's something I think I should report to you. While Ji Baiyu was staying at Heroes Mountain, a disciple named Yu Bo from the outer court kept harassing her. Yu Bo. That name rings a bell, Suzimo said, thinking. He's one of the new disciples this year. During the aptitude test, he showed sovereign grade aptitude and was immediately taken in as a personal disciple by an inner court elder. Little Gue explained. Oh, I remember now. Suzimo nodded. He had been there at the time but hadn't bothered to pay attention to minor characters like that. What should we do about him? Little Gue asked. Go bring him to South Goose Mountain, Suzimo said with a casual smile. Little Gue nodded and left the hall. Not long after, he returned, looking a little sour. What? Got blocked? Suzimo asked with a laugh. In his previous life, Yu Bo had talent, but was arrogant and lazy. Because of his ego, he neglected training and never achieved anything significant. He said he's cultivating and doesn't have time to meet with you, Little Gue snorted. He's too full of himself. Thinks that just because he's backed by an inner court elder, he doesn't need to respect even you. Not a big deal. Not worth getting angry over a clown like that. Suzimo shook his head. What's his ranking on the Crouching Tiger list? 68th, Little Gue replied. Sovereign grade aptitude, cultivation at the peak of the Spirit Meridian realm. Such good talent, completely wasted. With a personality like that, go find someone in the outer court who has a grudge against him, Suzimo said as he pulled a pill from his storage ring. This is a Meridian Forging pill. After taking it, a Spirit Meridian realm cultivator can instantly break through to the Meridian Forging realm. Give it to someone who hates him, and let them challenge him. Outer court disciples on the Crouching Tiger list could challenge higher-ranked disciples once a month. Each disciple was required to accept at least 3 challenges per month. No excuses allowed. Declining meant automatic defeat. Understood. Little Gue's eyes lit up as he took the pill and rushed out eagerly. Clearly, he was itching to put Yu Bo in his place. Night began to fall. True martial sacred ground wasn't ablaze with lights, but even in the dark, the atmosphere remained lively and full of energy. The disciples of true martial sacred ground lived under constant pressure. Many of them even sacrificed their sleep to focus on cultivation. In fact, after stepping onto the path of martial cultivation, the need for sleep gradually diminished as one's realm increased. Later on, some even spent years or centuries in closed-door cultivation without rest. As night fell, the sky was pitch black, sprinkled with a few twinkling stars. Suzimo made his way to the sword-washing pool. The sword-washing pool was a sacred place within true martial sacred ground, known for significantly enhancing the spiritual nature of weapons. Suzimo had gone to his father to obtain a token, one specifically for entering and exiting the sword-washing pool. For ordinary disciples, entering this place once would require a massive amount of contribution points. But for someone like Suzimo, a second-generation sect heir, contribution points were never a concern. The area around the sword-washing pool was protected by high-tier formations, personally laid down by the 7th Grand Elder. Without cultivation at the Empyrean Meridian realm, trying to break in meant certain death. Arriving at the edge of the formation, Suzimo saw a large tree. A hollow cavity had been carved into its trunk. He inserted the token into the hollow, and instantly spiritual energy surged in all directions. Wisps of white mist began to spread across the open space ahead. In addition to the defensive array, the area was also protected by an illusionary mist formation. The formation parted, opening a path, and Suzimo walked in. Inside the sword-washing pool, everything was engulfed in a white haze. Nothing was visible. But Suzimo knew this wasn't just mist. These white vapors were actually a special kind of spiritual energy for nurturing weapons. He continued walking forward. Soon, he could hear the sound of running water beneath his feet, which had become soft and slightly muddy. Drawing his blade, Shadow Tyrant, Suzimo instantly felt the surrounding energy rush toward it. After about 5 minutes, the mist began to thin and his vision cleared. Ahead lay a crystal-clear lake so transparent it looked like glass. At the center of the lake, several green lotuses bloomed quietly. The lotus flowers were pink and fragrant, each with 8 petals, rooted in the lakebed and releasing faint streams of pale green liquid into the water. Untouched by filth though it rises from the mud, pure and graceful in clean waters. The green lotus exuded a proud, holy scent, pure and sacred, as though it didn't belong to the mortal world. Each petal had a distinct color: white, black, yellow, red, blue, purple, gray, and green. Beside the lake was a massive light green boulder, smooth and finely textured. Its surface was engraved with countless weapon outlines: swords, spears, staves, axes, hooks, forks, you name it. Su Zimo sat quietly by the lake's edge and placed Shadow Tyrant on the part of the stone engraved with a curved blade. Then he scooped up some lake water and poured it onto the blade. He began to sharpen his weapon against the stone. Soho, soho. The sound of grinding metal echoed in the air. As the blade rubbed against the stone, Shadow Tyrant gradually grew brighter, glowing faintly with a white light. This act of sharpening felt rhythmic and almost ceremonial. Su Zimo slowly closed his eyes. The surroundings were silent. Only the sound of metal on stone remained. In his mind, all was darkness. Suddenly, a beam of white light flashed, flooding his consciousness. When the light faded, an image of a blade appeared vividly in his mind. Though his eyes were shut, this blade was clearer to him than if it were physically right in front of him. What exactly is a blade? Su Zimo once heard a saying, "A blade is a weapon of killing. Blade techniques are arts of killing." He could feel the shape of the blade becoming clearer in his mind, not through vision, but through his soul. To awaken a weapon spirit doesn't mean giving it full sentience like a human. It means imbuing it with basic, instinctual thought, just enough for the weapon to recognize its master. Once awakened, a weapon becomes like an extension of your arm, intuitive, seamless. Over time, as it evolves into an Emperor-class weapon, its consciousness grows stronger, nearly indistinguishable from a living being. At that stage, only its chosen master can wield it. No one else could even lift it. In this life, follow me to conquer the universe, shatter the skies, shoulder heaven's will, gaze down upon all living things, and fight to the bitter end. How's that sound? Su Zimo murmured. His voice was soft, as if he were talking to himself, or perhaps awakening something deeper. In the next moment, the blade image in his mind magnified, clearly the shape of Shadow Tyrant. The weapon began to tremble. Perhaps it was the physical blade in his hand, or perhaps it was the one in his mind. Or maybe both. A brilliant white glow burst from the blade as Shadow Tyrant began to transform. Once a mere mortal weapon, it was now fully refined into a yellow-grade spirit weapon. Its curve grew sharper. The dark steel gleamed with a pure luster, almost shining like obsidian. On the pitch-black hilt, the faint outline of a shadow dragon began to appear. Su Zimo looked at the newly upgraded Shadow Tyrant. Pleased, he smiled and sheathed the curved blade. The process had gone smoothly. Even without the help of the sword-washing pool, he could have awakened the blade, just with more effort. Before leaving, he glanced again at the lotuses in the center of the lake. Ranked 13th on the world's rarest treasures list, Myriad Dao Green Lotus. The name sounded grand, but its use was singular. It produced the holy water that awakens a weapon's spirit. Legend says that there are 8 Myriad Dao Green Lotuses in total, just like the flower's 8 petal colors. The one inside the sword-washing pool was just one of the green lotuses. It was said that if all 8 were gathered, they could challenge even the #1 spot on the world's rarest treasures list. Records from true martial sacred ground say that Grand Empress Hongtian once managed to gather all 8. But for unknown reasons, before she ascended, she left behind only 1 green lotus. The other 7 vanished without a trace. After sheathing Shadow Tyrant, Su Zimo left the sword-washing pool. Now that the weapon had reached yellow grade, it was time to begin the process of nurturing it. There were many well-known techniques for nurturing weapons, and the method you chose would determine the weapon's future form and path. Su Zimo already had a plan in mind. Su Zimo had already decided on the path for nurturing his weapon. He remembered from his previous life that there was a powerful cultivator named Six Domain Ancestor. After reaching the mountain of the Imperial Meridian Realm, instead of obsessing over breaking through to the Empyrean Meridian Realm, he deliberately slowed down his cultivation to fully devote himself to the study of weapon nurturing. He spent a full century in seclusion and ultimately created a method known as the six-domain weapon nurturing technique. The 6 domains here didn't refer to geographic regions or outer realms, but rather 6 elemental attributes. Six-domain ancestor secluded himself in the mountains for 100 years. When his weapon nurturing technique was complete, it is said that when he finally drew his divine blade, summoned rolling thunder, roaring fire, sweeping hurricanes, and crashing floods, with moonlight and sunlight illuminating the heavens. From that century of refinement, he stabilized his mindset and ascended into the Empyrean Meridian Realm in one bold leap. His battle of fame was using the very divine blade he had nurtured, defeating an Empyrean Meridian cultivator 2 minor realms above him. Though severely injured, he ultimately killed his opponent. From then on, the 6-domain weapon nurturing method gained renown across the eastern continent, eagerly sought and studied by countless warriors. Su Zimo realized that at this point in the timeline, 6-domain ancestor had yet to break through the Imperial Meridian Realm, and his 6-domain technique was still only a theoretical idea, which meant he would be the first person to actually implement it. Returning to South Goose Mountain, it was already deep into the night. Along the way, Su Zimo still saw some disciples training, carrying boulders as they ran, or practicing swordsmanship and blade techniques. We are all ordinary people bearing chains on the road of martial cultivation, Su Zimo thought to himself. Even grand emperors only walked a bit further than the rest. Watching these desperate cultivators gave him a sense of solemnity. Atop South Goose Mountain, Su Zimo slowly unsheathed Shadow Tyrant, gently stroking the now refined curved blade. The first step in the 6-domain method was to cultivate 6-domain spirit force within the body. Following the techniques from his past life, Su Zimo began his training. While not particularly difficult, it still took him the entire night to produce even the first trace of 6-domain spirit force. As the sky gradually brightened, and violet chi rose from the east, the early glow of dawn painted the heavens red. Su Zimo channeled the 6-domain spirit force to levitate Shadow Tyrant in midair. Then, beams of solar essence, tinted violet, cascaded down from the horizon and were gently absorbed into the blade. The hour before sunrise was when the solar essence was most abundant. Missing this window made absorption practically useless. The same applied to the lunar essence, which had to be absorbed during the first hour of moonrise. These 2 attributes were easy to gather. The real challenge lay in the other 4, heavenly thunder, terrestrial fire, hurricane, and torrential flood, which were far rarer. But for Su Zimo, obtaining them wasn't hard, just not worth an extra trip. Luckily, true martial sacred ground had a lightning pool, which he could use to refine the thunder attribute first. Early that morning, Ji Baiyu delivered the 500 Featherflight crystals. Thanks to the Featherflight steel, Ji Baiyu had no shortage of these. These crystals were likely ones she had stockpiled for herself. She dropped them off without much conversation and left quickly. She decided the less interaction with someone like Su Zimo, the better. He was the kind of man who never lost out in a deal. Among the inner court elders, a number belonged to Su Qingshan's faction, often referred to as the Younger Reformists. Su Zimo paid them a respectful visit and successfully had Ji Baiyu placed into the inner court. His own position in the sect was rather awkward. Technically, he was still an outer court disciple. But practically, his father was the most powerful man in the sect. He had nothing to fear from anyone. Still, he couldn't command others outright. If he needed help, he had to ask politely. People might help out for Su Qingshan's sake, but not his. Which meant that everything he had so far was thanks to his father. He himself had yet to display any value worth investing in. The best way to change that? Becoming the sect's Holy Son. The Holy Son not only received more resources, but also carried the sect's hopes for a future Grand Emperor. In many sects, The Holy Sun was often chosen to be a contender for the heaven's will. If successful, the sect would shine for generations, its name rising with the emperor like the sun at noon. Even if the contender failed, the Holy Sun would still be a prime candidate to become the next sect master. Losing the mandate didn't mean weakness, only that someone else was more monstrous in talent. After seeing Ji Baiyu off, Su Zimo returned to his cultivation, diving deep into introspection and technique refinement. He arranged the 500 featherflight crystals around him and began slowly absorbing their energy. In the true fate space within his abdomen, the nightmare beast was still struggling violently. The nightmare beast's greatest power was creating dream illusions. Su Zimo opened the true fate space and let it out. The little creature stared at him with glowing red eyes before ripples of energy started emanating from its body. Su Zimo didn't resist. Instead, he allowed the beast to envelop him in dream. He wanted to find a sliver of possibility within this illusionary realm. The river of time. Martial cultivation was mentally exhausting. Rushing it was futile. It required steady accumulation and sudden bursts of inspiration. When that spark arrived, it would be like a flood smashing through a dam, uncontrollable and overwhelming. Raging torrents fall from the heavens, never to return. Su Zimo remained in this state for a full week. When he finally awakened, he returned the nightmare beast to the true fate space. The 500 featherflight crystals were now reduced to dust, their energy completely consumed. Su Zimo stood up. Though he hadn't discovered the river of time, he had made significant progress in his understanding of martial cultivation. The road ahead is long and winding. He stepped outside. It was already afternoon. The golden sunset painted half the sky, and disciples flew overhead on flying beasts, casting silhouettes across the glowing clouds. The clouds themselves looked like burning flames, turning the scene into a stunning landscape painting. Just then, little Gue arrived at the courtyard atop South Goose Mountain. Seeing Su Zimo, he quickly called out, "Senior brother, you're finally out. In a few days, I'm heading to Sacred Spring Sect. You're coming with me," Su Zimo said. Little Gue nodded and said, "Senior brother, while you were in seclusion these past few days, someone from the Huang clan showed up at our court." "The Huang clan from Northwest City?" Su Zimo was surprised, but then quickly understood. "They're here for Yen Buhui, aren't they?" "Yes, the one who came is the Huang clan's second young master. Word is he's trying to get Yen Buhui kicked out of true martial sacred ground," Little Gue replied. "When did the Huang clan gain influence in our court?" Su Zimo asked with a laugh. "I heard the second young master, Huang Tianxia, is good friends with Xiao Xingyu, the first Grand Elder's grandson. The two of them supposedly made some shady backroom deal," Little Gue said, chuckling. "With Xiao Xingyu's help, this probably won't be difficult to pull off." "Interesting," Su Zimo said, amused. "Senior brother, should we help Yen Buhui?" Little Gue asked. "Weren't you paying close attention to him before? Go spread the word that Xiao Xingyu and I are mortal enemies," Su Zimo said after thinking for a moment. "Make sure it causes a stir. Let it spread far and wide." Little Gue nodded. Though he didn't understand the purpose behind this move, he dared not question it. Watching Little Gue leave, Su Zimo smiled to himself. Yen Buhui truly was a talented man. Perhaps, as many say, no strong one ever walked a smooth road. Everyone reached the mountain through hardship and failure. And Yen Buhui, according to Su Zimo's memories from his previous life, was destined for greatness even without any help from him. His plan now was simple. Turn icing on the cake into fuel in the snowstorm, maximize the benefit. Yen Buhui might just have a place among his future war generals. Su Zimo intended to help him, but not by offering it. He wanted Yen Buhui to come to him for help. The living quarters for true martial sacred grounds outer court disciples was a vast area filled with countless courtyards interwoven together. At that moment, outside Yen Buhui's courtyard, several outer court disciples were talking loudly. "Did you hear? That guy ranked 11th on the Crouching Tiger list. Yen Buhui. Turns out he's a bastard child. Yeah, I heard his mother was just a lowly maid. One night his dad got drunk and made a mistake. That's how he was born. TCH pitiful, huh? Word is the Huang clan doesn't acknowledge him at all. He's treated worse than a dog over there, so he ran off to our sect. If you ask me, his mother was probably a scheming whore. Waited until the clan head got drunk and jumped into his bed just to climb up the social ladder. Despicable. Their voices were loud enough to be heard from far away, clearly meant to provoke. Inside the room, Yen Buhui's forehead bulged with veins as he clenched his fists. He knew exactly what these people were trying to do. Provoke him into challenging them out of anger. All of them were ranked in the top 10 on the Crouching Tiger list. He couldn't beat them right now. Even though he understood everything, he still wanted to rip them apart. The rage in his heart was uncontrollable. His mother was a forbidden topic, his reverse scale. Everything he'd done, his relentless cultivation, was to one day destroy the Huang clan and seek justice for her. You really are a good brother, he muttered through clenched teeth, still hearing those humiliating words outside. He knew his older brother had come. This was all his doing. Even though he didn't accept that family, blood ties couldn't be denied. He had escaped the Huang clan and traveled thousands of miles to true martial sacred ground. But still, they refused to leave him alone. He shut his eyes, trying to calm his emotions and repeatedly telling himself, now is not the time to act on impulse. Someday, everything they've done, he would repay 100-fold. After a long silence, Yen Buhui realized his mind was only getting more chaotic. He looked over at the sword resting on the table, picked it up, and gently caressed its blade. A sword should never lose, its edge should reach the heavens, he whispered, as though making a great decision. Taking the sword, he opened the door and walked out with a grim face. When the disciples outside saw Yen Buhui emerge, one of them immediately stepped forward with a mocking grin. Well, if it isn't junior brother Yen. I heard your mom was a maid in the Huang clan. Just wanted to verify that rumor, true or not. Yen Buhui raised his sword and pointed it at the youth, speaking in a cold tone. Honestly, your attempts at provocation are childish and disgusting, but congratulations. You succeeded. What, you want to challenge me? The youth blinked in surprise, then grinned. Yes, life and death battle. Do you dare? Yen Buhui said slowly, every word filled with fury and madness. His voice was steady but trembling. The youth across from him couldn't even imagine how much hatred burned behind those eyes. He swallowed nervously, his aura wavered for a moment. But then he remembered he was at the peak of Meridian Forging Realm. That cultivation level was more than enough to qualify for the inner court. Yen Buhui was only at Meridian 5th layer, nothing to fear. Let's skip the life and death battle. We'll just fight by the Crouching Tiger list rules. The youth replied cautiously. Even though he was confident, he wasn't stupid. He was just paid to do a job, not to gamble with his life. The youth's name was Su Ren, ranked 7th on the Crouching Tiger list. Under its rules, higher-ranked disciples couldn't challenge lower-ranked ones. So their only option was to anger Yen Buhui into issuing a challenge himself. Meanwhile, atop Star Cosmos Mountain, residence of the Grand Elder's grandson Shao Xingyu, two young men sat across from each other in a quiet courtyard. One wore purple robes, his aura commanding and sharp. Clearly a man who exuded confidence and authority. Raising his teacup, he smiled and said, Brother Tianxia, the fish has taken the bait. Then I'll be counting on you for this, Brother Xingyu, the other young man said with a calm smile. He wore white robes, a black sword strapped to his back, and kept his hair short. Though not particularly handsome, he had a bright and commanding presence, clearly not ordinary. Don't worry, Shao Xingyu replied confidently. As long as he stays in the outer court, it's tricky to move against him directly. But the moment he's crippled, kicking a cripple out of the court, that's easily within my power. The match is scheduled for noon tomorrow. Shall we go enjoy the show? He added with a grin. I'll follow your lead, Huang Tianxia replied with a faint smile. Within the true martial sacred ground lies a unique location known as the Thunder Summoning Pool. Legend has it that the pool was established during the era of Grand Emperor Xinxing. In his youth, he had a powerful rival who battled him 6 times, 3 wins, 3 losses. This rival became known as Lord of Thunder. When Lord of Thunder attempted his breakthrough from the peak of the Paragon Meridian Realm to the Imperial Meridian Realm, he summoned a cataclysmic thunder tribulation. A massive sea of lightning engulfed the land. 9 heavens thunderclouds, infernal god thunder, heaven-warding thunder, all kinds of terrifying thunderbolts gathered together. That day, thunder echoed through the land, violet energy filled the skies, and thunderbolts stretched across the heavens like blazing rivers, suspended across 100 miles of sky. Lord of Thunder emerged from the Thunder Sea, blessed by 10,000 divine bolts, and successfully broke through to the Imperial Meridian Realm, stepping into legend. Later, when Grand Emperor Xinxing carried the Heaven's Will, he personally suppressed the Thunder Sea and refined the region, forming the Thunder Summoning Pool, both in memory of his old friend and as a training ground for future generations. When Su Zimo arrived at the Thunder Summoning Pool, many disciples were already there cultivating. A boundless sea of lightning surged across the land. Looking out into the distance felt like being submerged in a world of violet and light blue. At the outer edge of the pool, there were only faint arcs of electricity. Deeper inside, the lightning intensified in power and magnitude. It was said that deep within the Thunder Summoning Pool, there existed 9 heavens god thunder, the same kind used by Lord of Thunder himself. Body tempering through lightning is one of the most direct ways to strengthen the flesh. However, the thunder here was only effective for those at the Paragon Meridian Realm and below. Once one reached the Imperial Meridian Realm, its use became negligible. Su Zimo stepped into the Thunder Sea. After fusing with the hell-suppressing deity physique, his body was already incredibly powerful. The light blue arcs of electricity merely tickled him. As he walked deeper, the color of the lightning darkened, and a faint numbing sensation began to creep over him. Looking up, he saw a serpentine bolt of blue lightning soaring and roaring across the Thunder Sea. Su Zimo took a deep breath. The Thunder Summoning Pool was divided into 5 regions. Zone 1, mild electric arcs. Zone 2, standard thunderbolts. Zone 3, terrestrial core thunderfire. Upon entering Zone 3, Su Zimo immediately felt a tearing pain in his body. The lightning struck his flesh, killing and strengthening his cells in an endless cycle. Very few disciples trained in Zone 3. Aside from a handful of others, Su Zimo saw nothing but deep blue lightning as far as the eye could see. After walking a short distance, he came across a familiar face, Gao Xiong, the youth from the Myriad Mountains who possessed the ancient tyrant bear bloodline. Gao Xiong was currently standing in the densest part of Zone 3, his bulging muscles glistening under the crackling lightning. His hair stood straight back, his entire body bathing in the Thunder Sea. He tilted his head toward the sky, letting the lightning crack and sizzle across his body. His expression wasn't one of pain, but of enjoyment, as if the Thunder Sea was a refreshing bath. The ancient tyrant bear bloodline was indeed formidable. Once fully awakened, it could even rival some of the bottom-ranked physiques among the top 100 battle physiques. Noticing Su Zimo, Gao Xiong was surprised. "It's you," he said. After the new disciple's entrance trial, Gao Xiong had made a point to ask around about Su Zimo, the son of Vice Lord Su Qingshan, someone he dared not offend, but also someone he didn't want to fawn over. "Want to give Zone for a try?" Su Zimo asked with a smile. Gao Xiong gave him a look and quickly shook his head. He had tried entering Zone 4 once, feeling confident after his ease in Zone 3. But once inside, he realized the lightning there wasn't just stronger, it was on a completely different level. Not a quantitative change, but a qualitative one. Under Gao Xiong's cautious gaze, Su Zimo stepped toward Zone 4. The thunder roared in majestic fury, howling, shrieking, as if intent on destroying the heavens themselves. This was heaven-warding thunder, the divine thunder of Zone 4. The lightning shifted from deep blue to royal purple. As soon as Su Zimo stepped in, he felt his body grow heavy. His muscles tore with burning pain, as if he would be consumed by the frenzy. But Su Zimo endured. Sitting cross-legged, he circulated his internal cultivation method to heal and resist. Though agonizing, the lightning wasn't fatal. Still, he knew this was as far as he could go physically. But his real goal here wasn't to temper his body, it was to refine Tyrant's shadow. Once the pain dulled and his body adapted, Su Zimo stood and walked toward the edge of Zone 5. "Is this guy insane?" Gao Xiong muttered, watching with a pale face. Su Zimo reached the boundary between Zones 4 and 5. He didn't step in recklessly. Instead, he channeled his 6th domain spirit force into Shadow Tyrant. Then, he used the spirit force to levitate the blade into Zone 5 while he himself remained at the border. Zone 5's lightning was endless. Deep purple bolts blanketed the entire region. He could even hear the roars of thunder dragons. The lightning here had developed sentience. 9 heavens thunderclouds, infernal god thunder, purple gold celestial lightning, countless legendary forms of thunder fused into one. As the long silent sea of lightning stirred, Shadow Tyrant became the catalyst. First, gentle ripples, then crashing waves, and finally a thunderous tsunami. Countless bolts of lightning surged toward the blade. Crack, boom. Explosions echoed through the thunder sea, divine might flashing in arcs of white and violet. Shadow Tyrant trembled violently in mid-air. Su Zimo focused his gaze and poured more 6th domain energy into the weapon. As time passed, the blade's trembling began to stabilize. The dark blade gleamed ever more brightly, now tinged with deep purple lightning. Su Zimo took a deep breath and left the blade to refine itself in Zone 5, while he continued cultivating in Zone 4. The sea of thunder roared endlessly. By the time noon the next day arrived, Su Zimo opened his eyes from his cultivation. Today was the day of Yen Buhui's duel. He planned to bring little Gue and watch the show. Looking up, he saw Shadow Tyrant still suspended in midair, being tempered by the lightning. With a flick of his hand, the blade shot toward him like a streak of light. He glanced at Shadow Tyrant. Although this round of tempering hadn't fully awakened the blade's lightning attribute, the weapon's overall quality had significantly improved. Su Zimo estimated that after a few more refinements, once the lightning attribute was activated, Shadow Tyrant would advance to the profound tier. That's the value of forging weapons with high-grade materials. Though originally a common tier weapon, Shadow Tyrant held nearly limitless potential. Had it been forged with ordinary materials, it would have shattered after just a few seconds in the thunder pool. Sheathing the blade behind his back, Su Zimo began walking toward the outer sect. The Martial Challenge arena designated for the Crouching Tiger rankings matches was already bustling with activity. As one of the new disciples, Yen Buhui had risen to 11th place on the rankings in short time, a remarkable feat, making him the brightest star among this year's recruits. Now he was about to challenge Su Ren, ranked 7th. Every top 10 bout on the Crouching Tiger rankings always stirred up a storm among the outer sect. People loved witnessing a newcomer rise like a radiant star. They also enjoyed watching geniuses fall from grace. It gave them something to talk about and made them feel a little more significant. The martial arena was constructed from slabs of Blue Ridge stone, a material so durable it couldn't be broken without power on the true Meridian realm. At the moment, Su Ren, dressed in white, was leaning casually against the iron chains bordering the platform, a long sword at his hip. His aura was fierce and focused. He squinted at the crowd, quietly awaiting Yen Buhui's arrival. The autumn winds blew gently, cooling the remnants of summer heat. Yellowing leaves swirled down lazily in the breeze. "He's here!" someone shouted, turning all eyes forward. Far-off mountain ridges were shrouded in mist, and neat rows of outer sect courtyards lined the area. A stone pathway paved with white river pebbles led toward the platform, flanked by willows swaying gently in the wind. From the distance, a youth in a white robe approached. A long sword was strapped to his back, his long hair flowing behind him. He walked with calm strength, step by step toward the arena. "I thought you'd chicken out," Su Ren opened his eyes, gaze piercing. A flash of sword-intent streaking past his pupils as he chuckled. Talk all you want. Just don't beg for mercy later. Yan Buhui replied flatly. Sword force coiled around him. Head high and eyes sharp. He looked like a blade unsheathed, unstoppable. Su Ren snorted coldly. A loud clang rang out as his sword was drawn, slicing through the air with a streak of silver, charging straight at Yan Buhui. Yan Buhui remained composed, slowly drawing his own sword. Sparks flew as the two blades clashed. Their swords crossed in an X pattern, and Su Ren's spirit force surged, forcing Yan Buhui back several steps. Mystic Tear technique. Horizontal cleave. Su Ren growled. His sword, wrapped in spirit force, slashed down with immense power. Yan Buhui barely managed to parry, his arms going numb from the force. He tumbled back, narrowly dodging a follow-up strike. Profound technique. Explosive strike. Yan Buhui roared, countering from behind with a sword imbued with raw impact force. Their fight was deadly, each attack aimed to kill, no mercy was shown. Su Ren didn't turn to face him. Instead, he shifted slightly to the side, avoiding the blow. With a flick of his right arm, he elbowed Yan Buhui in the chest. Yan Buhui couldn't evade in time and was sent flying, crashing into the iron chains along the edge of the platform. Looks like we didn't miss the good part. Su Zimo and Little Gue arrived, standing off to the side to watch the battle amidst the crowd. Yan Buhui stabilized his stance, locking eyes with Su Ren. As expected of a top 10 ranked disciple, he thought. He's no pushover. His combat instincts and mastery over his techniques are on par with my own. This is your limit, huh? Su Ren sneered, slowly raising his sword. This next strike will finish it. His blade was enveloped in dark spirit force, causing the surrounding air to tremble. Resonating stone pulse slash, Su Ren whispered. He took a step back, slightly bent his waist, and shifted his right arm into position. Then, lightly stepping forward with his left foot, he shot forth like a bolt of lightning. As the resonance from the sword intensified, the air itself began to distort. A dazzling sword light formed in midair, aimed to cleave Yan Buhui in half from head to toe. Yan Buhui's eyes narrowed. He didn't dodge, he couldn't. If he couldn't take this blow, he wouldn't get another chance. As the sword light grew larger in his vision, he subtly shifted to the side. The sword didn't miss entirely. It stabbed directly into his abdomen. Time seemed to freeze. Even Su Ren was momentarily stunned. He knew the strike was powerful but not impossible to avoid. Yet Yan Buhui hadn't tried to dodge it fully. He had hesitated. When Su Ren tried to pull his sword back, he found it stuck. Yan Buhui had grabbed the blade with his right hand, holding it tight. Then, raising his left-hand sword, he slashed at Su Ren. He did it on purpose, Su Ren realized in horror. He quickly released the sword and leapt back, but still got slashed on the arm. His right arm now oozed blood. He looked at the wound, then back at Yan Buhui. That bastard took a fatal blow just to injure me. I know I'm no match for you, Yan Buhui said, face pale, yet smiling, a chilling sight. But I just wanted to prove something, to let people like you understand. No one insults my mother. Even if you're a lion, I, a mere ant, will tear off a piece of your flesh. He yanked the blade out of his stomach. Blood gushed, but he didn't flinch. In that moment, he looked like a demonic god, soaked in a sea of blood, fearless and unwavering. That was his creed, his sword path. Due to excessive blood loss, Yan Buhui's face grew even paler. He knelt on one knee, clearly no longer capable of fighting. Give up already, Su Ren said as he walked forward and kicked Yan Buhui over. Yan Buhui's body slammed heavily into the iron chains at the edge of the platform, and both his swords clattered to the ground. Su Ren stepped forward, planted his foot on Yan Buhui's sword, and bent down to retrieve his own. In the outer court competitions, it was forbidden to kill your opponent. Although accidents sometimes happened in combat, with Yan Buhui already incapable of resisting, Su Ren couldn't very well deliver a fatal blow. especially with elders watching nearby. But when Yen Buhui saw his sword pinned beneath Su Ren's foot, his bloodshot eyes widened. Summoning strength from who knows where, he lunged at Su Ren. Startled, Su Ren instinctively stepped back. Yen Buhui grabbed his sword and gently wiped away the footprint on his blade. "What's he doing?" murmured the spectators, confused by his actions. To Yen Buhui, there were two things in life he could never betray: one person and one object. The person was his mother. He would not allow anyone to slander her. His mother had died from illness when he was young. It wasn't even a serious illness. Any major clan like the Huang clan could have easily cured it with a single pill. But no one had bothered. No one had cared. He was only 7 years old when he watched his mother die before his eyes. It was then he swore he would rise above everyone, become someone powerful enough to destroy the Huang clan and avenge her. The object was his sword. Ever since his mother died, this sword had been his only companion. He had no friends, no use for so-called blood ties. The sword was the one thing always by his side. It was more than a weapon. It was a brother, a confidant. Whenever he held its hilt, he felt an endless sense of hope and confidence. It was his own strength. And now that sword had been stepped on. His blood continued to flow, soaking the blade in crimson. The sight was jarring. Yen Buhui felt his head growing heavy, his vision dim. He lay back on the martial arena. His ears rang, and the sounds around him turned into distant noise. Just a loser, trash, worthless. He could barely hear the scornful murmurs of the crowd. The sword wept. He could feel the emotion of his blade. Ever since he was small, he'd been able to sense it. Later, he would learn that he had accidentally awakened its spirit. His vision blurred further, and his eyelids grew heavier. As he lay there staring quietly at the weeping sword, he could feel his life force slipping away. Memories flashed through his mind. The day he first got the sword, how much he loved it. After his mother died, how he slept with it every night, how it never left his side. They had shared so many days and nights together, watched the moon, laughed, grown together. He had poured every thought and feeling into it. Damn it, he's not just some cold piece of steel. He's my brother. How could I let him be stepped on like that? A faint smile of acceptance crossed his lips as he recalled those lonely nights with only his sword for company. Suddenly, it was like a beam of light shot up his spine and exploded in his mind. What is a sword? A thunderclap rang out in his heart, and his mind went blank. Never in his life had he experienced such clarity. The world before him faded into a haze of gray, as thunder roared in his ears and countless lines of sword light crisscrossed his mind. I ride the wind through the heavens, with a 3-foot dragon sword in hand. Outside, his sword began to tremble. Strands of sword force slowly wrapped around his body. As the sword aura swirled, thunder crashed and the fog lifted. Yen Buhui slowly stood up. All things possess a presence, be it trees, flowers, or men of greatness. Everything has its own aura, and swords have their own as well sword presence. When that presence converges, when your vision clears in a way it never has before, you begin to see the world differently. Intent. That is sword intent. Is it over already? Muttered the spectators below. Newbies always think they're something special. This should teach him the outer court isn't a playground. Challenging senior brother Su Ren. What a joke. I saw this ending coming from the start. Predictable. Su Ren looked down at Yen Buhui, lying there like a dying dog. He shook his head and stepped forward, intending to kick him off the platform and end the match. The gap in cultivation wasn't something that could be closed with will alone. Su Ren himself had once been a proud genius when he first joined the court. But the world was full of geniuses. True strength lay in humility, and in the end, those with reverence and perseverance were the ones who prevailed. Just then, a burst of sword force slashed toward him. Startled, Su Ren shifted to the side and narrowly dodged it. His eyes darted forward. Yen Buhui, previously at death's door, was now surrounded by waves of terrifying sword force. That young man, bloodied and broken, had picked up his sword and stood once more. Yen Buhui felt an overwhelming heroic ambition rise within him, as though he were a slayer of demons standing tall between heaven and earth. His pupils contracted. A chill shot down his spine, and inspiration exploded through his mind like fireworks. The gathered aura around him transformed. Something had awakened. The seed of sword intent had been planted. His momentum surged, ominous and wild like a coming storm. His sword hummed joyously in his hand, and the dense sword aura surged like a tidal wave over the dueling platform. He opened his eyes, cold, sharp, brilliant. Countless sword lights rippled and erupted forth. What is that? Su Ren's expression changed. Instinctively, he took 2 steps back, staring at the sword aura now dancing across the sky. Yen Buhui gently waved his sword, and all the accumulated sword aura found its outlet, rushing toward Su Ren. As he watched the storm of sword light engulf the arena like a prison of blades, Su Ren knew he couldn't dodge. He raised his sword in defense. With a deafening clang, the swords collided, sparks flying. Su Ren's hands went numb. His face twisted in shock and fear, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Even with the massive difference in cultivation between them, that one burst of sword force had nearly overwhelmed him. Watching the endless sword force crisscrossing in front of him, sword intent slicing through the silent sky with an unstoppable force, Su Ren felt his heart nearly stop. A suffocating dread, as if death itself was pressing down on him, surrounded him completely. "I concede!" he screamed, veins bulging, as the ocean of sword energy loomed above like a sky-shattering wave. It was as if the heavens themselves were collapsing, and those words were the last ounce of strength he could muster before collapsing to the ground. The sword energy halted, just 2 centimeters from the tip of his nose. But even so, due to the sheer overwhelming force of it, several strands still slashed across Su Ren's body. With a pained cry, he was blasted backward. His originally white robes instantly stained scarlet midair, and he crashed to the ground, unmoving amid a cloud of dust, his fate uncertain. On the platform, Yen Buhui gave a faint smile, then finally collapsed, unable to hold on any longer. The crowd surrounding the arena erupted into chaos. Some stared blankly, murmuring, "That newcomer won. It was unbelievable." He had been completely outmatched, so how had he turned the tables? Yen Buhui lay unconscious on the dueling platform, but no one dared to go near him. There were many who wanted to step in and help, hoping to gain favor with someone who clearly had great potential, but Xiao Xingyu had made it clear. Anyone who sided with Yen Buhui would be his enemy. So after a few reluctant sighs, the outer court disciples slowly drifted away. Su Zimo approached with little Gue and checked Yen Buhui's condition. The injuries were severe but not fatal, at least not yet. If left untreated, however, things could become critical. "You two had better not meddle in things you shouldn't," came a calm voice from the other side of the platform. It was Huang Tianxia, dressed in flowing white robes, strolling over slowly. "Scram!" Little Gue snapped without even looking, frowning. He wasn't worried. With Su Zimo backing him, he had nothing to fear. "I'm a friend of Xiao Xingyu, grandson of the first Grand Elder of your sect," Huang Tianxia said coldly, locking eyes with little Gue. "You'll pay for those words." "Xiao Xingyu? He's nothing but an insect," Su Zimo said with a smirk, lifting his head lazily. "This is the true martial sacred ground, not your little backwater in Northwest City. You'd better tuck your tail between your legs, or I won't mind turning you into that." He gestured at the unconscious Su Ren, lying broken and bloodied nearby. "You?" Huang Tianxia's expression darkened. His gaze narrowed. He wasn't stupid. If Xiao Xingyu's name didn't intimidate the other party, then this man's background clearly wasn't weak either. "What's your name?" he asked. "You're not worthy to know it," Su Zimo replied coolly. He gave a look to the outer court elder nearby, then turned and left with little Gue. The elder understood immediately and rushed forward to carry the injured Yen Buhui away for treatment. Huang Tianxia stared after Su Zimo's retreating figure, expression shifting back and forth, before finally letting out a cold snort. The next day at noon, Xiao Xingyu personally came to South Goose Mountain to find Su Zimo. Xiao Xingyu was 2 years older than Su Zimo and had begun cultivating earlier. It was said that he had originally been born with sovereign-grade aptitude, but the first Grand Elder had spent considerable effort to elevate it to Emperor grade. Among the younger generation of the true martial sacred ground, he was considered a standout. Perhaps because the Grand Elder and Su Qingshan, Su Zimo's father, didn't get along. Su Zimo and Xiao Xingyu had clashed often in their youth, frequent fistfights and rivalry. At the South Goose Mountain courtyard, Su Zimo lounged on a recliner, basking in the sun, completely at ease. Xiao Xingyu stood nearby in a purple robe, eyes narrowed. What happened with Yan Buhui has nothing to do with you. I don't need you to tell me how to handle my affairs, Su Zimo replied indifferently. Even if you interfere, it's pointless. I still have the authority to expel an outer court disciple from the court, Xiao Xingyu said firmly. Don't forget, the one steering this court still bears the surname Su, Su Zimo said with a smile. Helping outsiders target your own sex disciples. Impressive. Real impressive. Make a big deal out of this or not, it's still big enough. Wonder how it would go if I brought it up to the elders. You think I'd handle it personally? Xiao Xingyu replied flatly. Then you'd better be careful, Su Zimo said, pointing to his own eyes. Because I'm watching. You're really going to go this far for an outer court disciple you don't even know? Xiao Xingyu paused, then asked again. Piss off. Don't think you're hot shit, Su Zimo sneered. You're nothing more than a leaping grasshopper. If I wanted, I could squash you into green bug paste anytime. Xiao Xingyu's face contorted with emotion. Then, forcing a smile through his anger, he said, Fine, we'll see. As he stormed off, Su Zimo yawned and closed his eyes. Some people just weren't worth his attention. Not out of arrogance, just difference in perspective. He had lived a previous life and seen far more than this narrow world. Later, Su Zimo called over Little Gue. Go to Imperial Gate City and bring back Vast Sky. When Huang Tianxie returns to Northwest City, have him ambushed on the road. You want him dead? Little Gue asked, surprised. No. Su Zimo shook his head. The Huang clan of Northwest City may not rival our true martial sacred ground, but they're not weak. As the second young master, he'll definitely be well protected. Killing him with just one expert at the Paragon Meridian realm won't be enough. I just want to give him a little reminder. This world is dangerous. Little Gue nodded. Sometimes he didn't fully understand Su Zimo's thinking, but he didn't question it. That very day he left the court. Over the following days, Su Zimo returned to his usual routine. During the day, he went to the thunder summoning pool to temper his saber, and at night, he absorbed lunar essence. Occasionally, he would also meditate and further refine his cultivation techniques. The day of their trip to the sacred spring sect was drawing closer. One day, while resting in the courtyard, Maid Chunxiao came to report that someone from Graceful Willow Mountain was here to see him. Graceful Willow Mountain was where the 6th Grand Elder resided, and Su Zimo instantly thought of by Li Xiao. When the visitor entered, Su Zimo saw that it was indeed the twin sisters, Xue Qianxue and Xue Mengmeng. What brings you two here? Su Zimo asked with a faint smile. We're here to pass a message from Senior Sister Bai, Xue Qianxue replied softly. She's been wanting to visit you and wanted to ask when you might have time. If it were you two, I might consider it, Su Zimo said with a smirk. As for her, not interested. Can you speak properly for once? Xue Qianxue said helplessly. We're just delivering her message. Senior Sister Bai has always admired you. Admire me? Yeah, I totally believe that, Su Zimo thought sarcastically. Still, he squinted slightly, gave the sisters a once-over and said, Tell her to come find me at South Goose Mountain tomorrow afternoon. Seeing the undisguised look in his eyes, Xue Mengmeng scrunched up her nose and glared. What are you staring at? Never seen a beautiful woman before. I've seen plenty of beauties, Su Zimo chuckled. But sisters? That's a first. Come on, sis, let's go. No need to talk to this jerk, Shui Mengmeng said, her face flushed, tugging at her sister's sleeve. Don't forget your promise. Tomorrow afternoon. Shui Qianxue gave Su Zimo a meaningful look and then left with her sister. I see the stars aligning, the moon full and round tonight, Su Zimo called out with a loud laugh. Why don't you both stay a while, drink some wine, admire the moon, and share life stories? Sounds like a great time. Hearing his voice behind them, the sisters quickened their steps. As they disappeared, Su Zimo's smile slowly faded. He clicked his tongue. Bailey Xiao, I'm curious to see what you're up to. He wondered to himself. In his previous life, was he truly infatuated with Bailey Xiao? Not really. He just wanted to sleep with her. All those love at first sight stories? Just shallow infatuation. True love grows over time. From the afternoon on, Su Zimo remained at the Thunder Summoning Pool. The lightning attribute tempering of Shadow Tyrant was nearing completion. More accurately, the first phase of the Heavenly Thunder attribute was about to be completed. To proceed to the second phase, he'd need to finish tempering the remaining 5 attributes first. In the 5th zone of the Thunder Summoning Pool, massive arcs of lightning wove into a net of crackling energy. Silver dragons roared, violet lightning howled. Most would be awed upon first entering the Thunder Summoning Pool, but for Su Zimo, who had come many times, it was nothing new. The Shadow Tyrant trembled, a blade light flashed, and in addition to the Shadow Dragon emblem, a lightning rune appeared near the hilt. When Su Zimo exited the Thunder Summoning Pool, he realized he'd been inside for an entire day and night. It was now afternoon, just in time for his appointment with Bailey Xiao. So this is technically the first proper meeting between us in this lifetime, he murmured, smiling as he made his way back to South Goose Mountain. The sunset was beautiful, but it signaled the day's end. In the courtyard of South Goose Mountain, a young woman stood with her back to the path, poised at the edge of the mountainside. Her gaze was fixed on the setting sun. The golden hue hung along the horizon. The sunset today was more brilliant than usual. Blue skies, white clouds, rolling green hills. Her long hair flowed freely, dressed in a white inner garment and a sheer pale blue gauze robe fluttering in the breeze. A faint fragrance clung to her body. Her skin was like snow, her eyes full of softness and vitality. But most eye-catching of all were her long, slender legs, so fair, so straight. When the gauze robe lifted slightly in the breeze, it was enough to drive any man's hormones wild. Sadly, there were few who passed by the courtyard to admire the view. As Su Zimo reached South Goose Mountain, Bailey Xiao turned around, as if sensing his presence. Her gaze was clear, her lips red and teeth white. From an outsider's perspective, Bailey Xiao was undeniably stunning. She looked like a fairy who had fallen to the mortal world. Gazing upon her felt almost like sacrilege. Junior Sister Bai, what brings you here? Su Zimo asked with a chuckle. Senior brother Su may have heard, I used to live in a small mountain village. I'm still unfamiliar with many things in the sect, Bailey Xiao said gently. I thought I'd pay you a visit, in hopes you might offer some guidance in the future. She smiled like a spring breeze. I actually wanted to visit earlier, she continued. But you were away from the sect, so I asked someone to reach out instead. I hope you won't take offense. Su Zimo studied her for a moment. Many who rose to prominence overnight tried to bury their humble pasts. Yet Bailey Xiao brought it up so calmly. No problem, Su Zimo said, walking into the courtyard. So that's all you came for? There's something else? Bailey Xiao followed him in and fixed her gaze on him. My aunt arranged a marriage between us and the Vice Lord. I never liked being forced into such things, but I didn't reject it either. I want to know why you turned it down. Su Zimo looked at her. She met his gaze, her eyes stubborn and unwilling to yield. Great acting, Su Zimo thought with a faint smile. If not for his memories of his past life, he might have seen her as just an innocent girl. Why are you laughing? Bailey Xiao bit her lips slightly, looking a little aggrieved. Am I so undesirable? Watching her act out the scene, Su Zimo found it almost funny. like everyone was drunk but he alone was sober. He shook his head and laughed softly. I just don't want to steal another man's woman. That's all. Bailey Xiao was stunned, then quickly responded, but I don't have anyone I like. Oh! Su Zimo raised an eyebrow, then called over his guard, Zhang Zhongtian. Help me kill someone, he said. Zhang Zhongtian blinked in surprise, then bowed respectfully. Young master, just give the order. Go to Sunshine Village and kill a boy named Chu Yang. Bailey Zhao's expression changed instantly. Senior brother Su, she quickly said. Chu Yang is just a friend, nothing more. There's no need to kill him. Why so nervous then? Su Zimo smirked and reached out to lift her chin. But Bailey Xiao turned her head aside with displeasure. Please behave yourself, senior brother Su. If you don't want me to kill Chu Yang or wipe out Sunshine Village, Su Zimo said calmly, you'd better not move. Bailey Zhao's expression turned grim. She stared deeply at Su Zimo but didn't dare make a move. Such devotion, Su Zimo sneered, lifting her chin with one hand. What a fine face. What do you want? Bailey Xiao narrowed her eyes, lips trembling as she spoke. Su Zimo smirked coldly and suddenly clamped his hand around her throat, squeezing tightly. He held her like that until her face turned pale and her breath grew faint. Pulling her face close to his, he stared at her and said in a low, cold voice, everyone has the right to choose their own path in life. I don't judge others' choices easily. But once you've chosen, be ready to pay the price, even if it's your life. With that, Su Zimo flung her aside. Bailey Zhao's body slammed into the ornamental rock in the courtyard. She staggered to her feet, gasping for air, her face pale and forehead beaded with sweat. I don't know how I offended you, senior brother Su. If it was unintentional, I hope you can forgive me? Bailey Xiao said sincerely, not angry but composed. An adult knows how to control their emotions. Those who accomplish great things don't fuss over the petty. Su Zimo looked at her and said, fuck off while I'm still in a good mood. But don't think this is over between us. Have you ever experienced what it's like to watch the one you love the most get carved apart, piece by piece, and be powerless to stop it? Now that is satisfying. He laughed loudly as he spoke, his face twisted and maniacal. If you want something from me, then take it up with me, Bailey Xiao replied coldly. Please don't kill innocent people. I'm not feeling well today, so I'll take my leave. I'll come visit another time. As Bailey Zhao's figure disappeared into the distance, Su Zimo leaned back on his lounge chair in the courtyard, gazing calmly at the sunset, eyes deep in thought. 2 days later, little Gue returned from Imperial Gate City. Since Vast Sky couldn't come to the sect directly, little Gue arranged for him to stay in a nearby town under the sect's domain. Meanwhile, in the outer court's residential area, Yen Buhue finally woke up from his coma. He had been unconscious for 3 days and nights. His first reaction upon waking was to look for his sword. When he saw it lying quietly on the table, he let out a sigh of relief. His wounds were wrapped in bandages. Though he was still very weak, his only serious injury was the stab to the abdomen. Just then, the door opened and an old man walked in, holding a bowl of porridge. If you can move, eat, the elder said plainly. Yen Buhue recognized him, an outer court elder who had also served as the judge during his duel with Su Ren. Thank you, Elder Pang, Yen Buhue said gratefully, picking up the bowl to eat. You defeated Su Ren, but this won't be the end of it, the elder said. I know. If trouble comes, I'll deal with it, Yen Buhue replied with a smile. Here's a bit of advice, go visit South Goose Mountain. Someone there can help you, the elder said before leaving. Yen Buhue stared at the slowly closing door for a moment, then quietly resumed eating his porridge. Senior brother, the Yubo matter has been handled, little Gue said a few days later, smiling as he arrived at South Goose Mountain. What happened? Su Zimo asked. I asked around in the outer court like you told me. Yubo acted all high and mighty because of his talent, and he didn't respect anyone. He even seduced another disciple's partner. Little Gue chuckled. So I gave that guy the meridian forging pill. After breaking through to the Meridian Forging realm, he immediately challenged Yu Bo. And then, Su Zimo asked, I just came back from the arena. Little Gue grinned. That guy got so fired up he kept attacking even after Yu Bo surrendered. Now he's been punished by the outer court elders. But Yu Bo got beaten half to death. He won't recover for at least 10 to 15 days. Su Zimo nodded. You have to hit where it hurts. Be ruthless or they won't learn. What do you mean, senior brother? Little Gue asked. Find someone to destroy his talent. Cripple him, Su Zimo said calmly. Little Gue hesitated. But his master is an inner court elder. If this gets found out, it'll be serious. You have to understand, Su Zimo said with a smile. It's because of his aptitude that the elder accepted him. If his talent's ruined, he's no longer worth investing in. Do you think that elder will cause a stir over a useless disciple? Little Gue nodded slowly. Su Zimo's reasoning made sense. Go do it. If anything goes wrong, I'll take the heat, Su Zimo said, waving his hand. Heavenly Sword Sect was located west of Fire Beacon City. The entire mountain stood tall like a giant sword piercing the sky. Though the sect's strongest were only at the Paragon Meridian realm, a low-tier, third-rate sect. To countless youths with no background, this place was still a sacred land for cultivation. At dawn, the first rays of sunlight shone down on Heavenly Sword Sect, reviving all things and signaling a new day. At the heart of the sect stood a unique place, Heavenly Sword Mountain. The sect took its name from this site. Legend had it that the sect's first founder, known as the Heavenly Sword Ancestor, once fought a fierce battle here. He clashed for 3 days and nights with a fellow Paragon Meridian realm opponent. In the end, his sword intent tore through the heavens, slaying his foe with a single strike. Even after the kill, the sword intent didn't dissipate. It split a nearby mountain clean in half, and sword intent wrapped around it for tens of meters. From that day on, the mountain had a new name, Heavenly Sword Mountain. The elder who delivered that blow? No one knew his true name. The world simply called him Heavenly Sword Ancestor. Remnants of that sword intent still linger on Heavenly Sword Mountain. Disciples of Heavenly Sword Sect often came here to comprehend the lingering will of the sword, hoping that one day they might awaken their own sword intent. The land beneath Heavenly Sword Mountain was scarred and battered, with invisible sword intent swirling around the mountain. Gales howled. Sword energy pierced the clouds. The peak stood hundreds of meters tall, and in the crevice where it had been cleaved in two, one could still faintly feel sword intent erupting, allowing visiting disciples to imagine the ferocity of the battle that once took place here. Just 3 meters from the base of Heavenly Sword Mountain, Chu Yang sat cross-legged, circulating the energy of the war immortal tactics, using the sword intent around him to refine and temper himself. Comprehending sword intent was a slow and arduous process, and Chu Yang knew this well. However, in recent days he felt he was on the verge of a breakthrough. Around him, many other disciples also sat cross-legged, either meditating on sword intent or using it to temper their bodies. See him? That's senior brother Chu Yang. Some disciples whispered, pointing toward Chu Yang's back. One day, I want to be just like him. Yeah, right. He just got lucky and was taken in by the sect master as his final disciple. Big deal. Someone muttered with jealousy. Don't be bitter. The man beat a true Meridian realm cultivator while still at the Meridian Forging realm. You're not even close. Recently, the Heavenly Sword Sect had grown especially lively, as a new batch of disciples had just joined. With new blood, the sect brimmed with vitality. And Chu Yang had become the undisputed rising star of the sect. He had passed the trial in Fire Beacon City and arrived at the sect with no background or connections. As was common for new disciples, he faced suppression and bullying from the older generation. But Chu Yang didn't choose to yield. Unlike other new disciples who would grovel and give away their allotted cultivation resources just to avoid trouble, he chose to fight back head-on. Everyone expected him to be crushed under the pressure and eventually fade away like others before him. No one anticipated that this young man would rise like a comet and shine like fireworks. He had already reached the Meridian Forging realm before joining the sect. That alone made him stand out in the outer sect, where most disciples were still in the Spirit Meridian realm. After winning the outer court tournament, he naturally entered the inner court. Many assumed that in the inner sect, he would finally be suppressed, that the veteran disciples would teach this upstart a lesson. But instead, he swept through the inner sect undefeated, invincible among peers. Can you believe that? Those in the same cultivation realm as him were no match. Even those a level or two higher couldn't last long. Eventually, his growing fame provoked the ire of one of the core disciples, a cultivator at the True Meridian realm. That core disciple challenged Chu Yang to a duel on the sect's arena. Before thousands of disciples, the match was held. Chu Yang, still at the peak of the Meridian Forging realm, defeated the True Meridian realm core disciple. That battle shook the entire sect like a storm, spreading overnight and making Chu Yang a household name. Even sect master Yubuli was alarmed and personally accepted him as his final disciple. Chu Yang's rise made him a symbol of admiration for many in the sect. He was one of them, no background, no support. If he could do it, why couldn't they? This shared struggle made Chu Yang especially respected among lower-ranked disciples. Of course, none of them knew that their hero had a cheat code, a hidden old grandpa guiding him behind the scenes. Senior brother, the sect master wants to see you. A disciple came to wake Chu Yang from his meditative state. Understood. Chu Yang nodded. He had grown taller, and his once boyish face had begun to harden with maturity. The wandering dragon sword was slung over his back, and he wore a pale white robe. His long hair, uncut for a while, draped messily over his head. I'm already at the peak of the Meridian Forging realm, he thought as he stood. It won't be long before I step into the True Meridian realm. Before leaving, he cast a long look at the broken mountain of Heavenly Sword Mountain. His understanding of sword intent had become increasingly vivid, as though he was just one step away from piercing through the veil. Chu Yang made his way to the mountain where Yubuli resided. In the courtyard, Yubuli sat in a gazebo, dressed in a green robe, sipping tea. You wanted to see me, master? Chu Yang asked as he approached. You've taken me as your teacher, but I haven't given you much in return. Yubuli nodded and handed over a book. Take this. It may be of use to you. Chu Yang received the book, clearly a hand-copied cultivation manual. The pages were crisp and new, and the white cover bore 4 bold black characters. Heavenly Firmament Sword Cannon. Seeing the puzzled look on Chu Yang's face, Yubuli smiled and explained, This sword cannon was left behind by the founder of our Heavenly Sword sect. If you can comprehend it, you'll be able to grasp the Heavenly Firmament Sword intent. Thank you, master. Chu Yang quickly stowed the manual and bowed respectfully. To be honest, Yubuli said with emotion, in my life I've seen many gifted and talented disciples, but what drew me to you most wasn't your talent. It was your Tao heart. A Tao heart that knows no fear, no compromise, and never retreats. I'll do my best, Chu Yang replied solemnly. I'm old, Yubuli said with a sigh. Unless something unexpected happens, it's unlikely I'll improve further in this life. This era belongs to the young. You know, he continued, our Heavenly Sword sect isn't particularly renowned in this far western land. Most disciples, when they consider joining a sect, aim for the great imperial lineages like the True Martial Sacred Ground or Divine Sun Sacred Ground. At the very least, they aim for first or second-tier sections. Those who come to our third-rate sect are often the ones who were rejected or have poor talent. Chu Yang nodded silently. Big sects not only offered better resources but also stronger protection for their disciples. With your talent, Yubuli smiled. Even if you had joined one of those imperial lineages, you wouldn't have been overlooked. In truth, when I took you as a disciple, I was being a little selfish. I wanted to tie you to this sect. I hope you won't blame me for that. Yubuli spoke with calm confidence. People often say that true affection can't keep someone around. Only cunning wins hearts. But when all the tricks get overused, you realize that genuine feelings are what truly matter. Sometimes, Real sincerity is simply the counter to all the fake patterns people have gotten used to. Master, don't worry. No matter how far I go in the future, I'll never forget I'm a disciple of the Heavenly Sword Sect, Chu Yang said solemnly. Good. Go on then. If the sect ever needs anything, come to me directly, Yu Bewley replied with a smile. After leaving the mountain, Chu Yang returned to his own courtyard. He first pulled out the Heavenly Firmament sword cannon and studied it for a while. Looking at the ring on his finger, he asked, Teacher, what do you think of this sword manual? It's a so-so, Old Mo's voice replied. But it suits your current level. You can train with it as a foundation. Right now, even if I gave you a more advanced sword technique or meridian technique, you wouldn't understand it. Chu Yang nodded. The path of cultivation was full of mysteries. In fact, with the war immortal tactics he was currently practicing, there were many areas he still couldn't grasp on his own and needed Old Mo to explain. The ancestral shrine of the Ren clan sat in a long-abandoned valley. Since the Grand Emperor Tunri ascended ages ago, the Ren clan had fallen into complete decline. For the descendants of an emperor, decline is terrifying. The world assumes you possess the emperor's inheritance, and when you lack the strength to hold it, that inheritance becomes a curse, not an honor. Just like the Ji clan, descendants of the Grand Emperor Fei Yu, the Run clan had long feared this outcome, so they relocated to this barren valley, trying to live in seclusion. But fate rarely grants such peace. After years of silence, a sudden beam of black light shot up from the Ren ancestral shrine. Then space collapsed. Spirit force became chaotic, and the area around the shrine twisted out of shape. Strong winds howled, uprooting trees. Space cracked like a spiderweb, splitting with countless fractures. A deep, boundless black hole formed above the shrine. When the black hole appeared, spirit force swirled into a storm, raging wildly. A force of devouring spread across the area as a man slowly emerged from the black hole. He wore a black robe, short hair spiked upward, black spiritual energy swirling around him. He walked through the air, his face calm, eyes flickering faintly with dark light, engulfed in devouring energy. Ren Pingsheng looked around. The pressure of his Paragon Meridian realm radiated outward. His eyes turned toward the far distance, the direction of the Heavenly Sword Sect. Yu Bewley, it's time we settled this. Morning light bathed the spring breeze. The glow of dawn was always soft. Autumn's arrival crept in. Leaves once green now faded yellow, then withered and drifted from the trees, carried away by the breeze. Yu Bewley stood halfway up the mountainside, gazing out across the hundreds of kilometers that belonged to the sect. The mountains wound endlessly, still wrapped in the mist left from the previous night. Disciples were already up, cultivating. Some sparred, some meditated to absorb spiritual energy. Others headed to the Heavenly Sword Peak to comprehend sword intent. Yu Bewley smiled faintly, then returned to his courtyard. Master, I didn't let down the sect you entrusted to me. The sect was small, but thriving. At least it gave people hope. Yu Bewley knew the Heavenly Sword Sect was still far from a second-rate sect. The main issue was a lack of top-tier experts. Without powerful figures holding it up, this was the best they could manage. He sat in the pavilion and poured himself a cup of tea. Suddenly, a strange feeling washed over him, and he looked to the distant sky. A black mist sped toward him, cutting through the air with fierce spiritual turbulence. Wherever it passed, space cracked and shattered. The black mist carried such dense killing intent it was nearly tangible. In just a few breaths, it reached Yu Bewley. Ren Pingsheng stood in the air above, glaring down at Yu Bewley with hatred. Yu Bewley, long time no see. Yu Bewley looked up, stunned, as if he were in a dream. The black mist roared around them. The pressure of the Paragon Meridian realm enveloped his mountain, and the faint, devouring force around Ren Pingsheng made him wary. Brother Pingsheng, it really has been a long time, Yu Bewley said, lifting his cup and draining it in one go. I still miss the days you called me Brother Bewley. You have the gall to say that? Ren Pingsheng roared, meridians bulging on his face, black mist boiling around him. You betrayed me. For a so-called emperor's inheritance, you slaughtered my entire family. I treated you like a brother, but you only befriended me to get that inheritance. Everyone is born with a mission, Yubuli said, calm and detached. Brother Pingsheng, what's your mission? My mission. Ren Pingsheng froze, staring at Yubuli. I was raised in the Heavenly Sword sect. Since I was young, I vowed to make it the strongest sect in the Western region. Yubuli said with a smile. I want to lead this sect to glory. That's my dream and my mission. Your mission is to build your dream on the pain of others? Ren Pingsheng said sadly, shaking his head. You're wrong, Brother Pingsheng. What I did follows the most basic law of survival in this world. The strong live, the weak die. Survival of the fittest. Yubuli admitted he was in the wrong, but didn't argue further. Yes, they had been close brothers even. They once rode side by side, shared drinks, traveled across half the Western lands. They'd been friends for over a decade, sworn brothers even. But what Ren Pingsheng never knew was, from the moment they met, it was all part of Yubuli's plan. Life is a stage and we're all actors. His goal had always been the emperor's inheritance. But after more than 10 years with the Ren clan, he found nothing, no trace of Grand Emperor Tun Ri's legacy. Time was running out. He was growing old. Without that inheritance, he couldn't advance any further. So, he wiped out the Ren clan, hoping to force Ren Pingsheng to hand it over. Well then, since you believe in survival of the fittest. Ren Pingsheng laughed maniacally, his black hair rising without wind. Black mist filled half the sky. Even the sun seemed to be swallowed. Its light dimmed. Darkness fell. Staring at Yubuli, he wore a crazed grin. Then today I won't just kill you. I'll destroy this sect right in front of you. Your so-called glory and honor. I'll bury them with you. In hell. Dark mist surged around Ren Pingsheng as a pitch-black flame ignited from nowhere. The moment the flame began to burn, everything around him, space and even air, was utterly obliterated. A temporary vacuum formed around Ren Pingsheng. Flames spread across his entire body, and he charged at Yubuli like a falling meteor, unstoppable and overwhelming. Seeing the descending inferno, Yubuli's eyes reflected the flickering flames. He slowly drew his great sword, its blade over a foot wide, exuding an ancient and heavy aura. The sword was entirely brown, and as soon as it was in his grasp, Yubuli's previously calm aura transformed. A sharp, overwhelming sword intent shot skyward, splitting the sky above as though tearing the heavens apart. With eyes sharp as torches, Yubuli swung the greatsword toward the incoming black fire. With a single strike, space shattered around him. Deafening explosions rang out endlessly. The air compressed, condensed, and then exploded violently with crackling bursts. When the great sword collided with the fireball, a searing shockwave burst forth between them. The surrounding mountains were engulfed and destroyed in the blast. Courtyards, pavilions, artificial hills, and willow trees. Everything around Yubuli's home was leveled. The mountain began to crack, deep fissures spread toward the midslope, and explosive rumbles echoed throughout the entire Heavenly Sword sect. Heavens! That's the peak where the sect master lives. This shocking scene immediately drew the attention of every disciple in the sect. Is someone attacking our Heavenly Sword sect? Who is the sect master fighting? The power is terrifying. While the disciples buzzed with questions, Yubuli locked eyes with Ren Pingsheng, now only a breath away, his flame-wrapped fists striking the blade. The immense impact made Yubuli's arms tremble uncontrollably. The ground beneath his feet fractured deeper and deeper. The scorching heat threatened to burn everything. As the blazing force hit his face, Yubuli quickly pulled back his sword and leapt into the air to retreat a few steps. He too walked through the air, gripping the great sword with both hands, facing Ren Pingsheng from a distance. You inherited Grand Emperor Tun Ri's legacy? Yubuli asked gravely. It wasn't just that Ren Pingsheng had reached the Paragon Meridian realm. His flames themselves seemed to have evolved. The transformation was profound, and Yubuli could think of no other explanation. Enough talk. Today I will destroy your heavenly sword sect. Renpingshing snorted coldly and launched another thunderous punch. Yubuli took a deep breath, raised the great sword high above his head with both hands. At first, the sword's aura seemed unstable, but as Yubuli closed his eyes and then slowly opened them again, the residual sword intent on the blade transformed entirely. His eyes gleamed with sword light, and a fierce, resilient white sword aura rose from his body. It was the heavenly firmament sword intent, the ancient power left behind by the sect's founding ancestor, the heavenly sword ancestor. Compared to ordinary sword intent, the heavenly firmament sword intent had far greater offensive power. The aura pierced the clouds, even clearing much of the black mist above. Yubuli stood at the center of the white sword aura, his robes snapping violently in the storm. As he swung the blade, a white fissure tore through space itself, and the aura lingered long after. Renpingshing frowned. As their powers clashed again, he clearly felt the sharpness and resilience of Yubuli's strike. The sword aura was not only stronger in offense, it now had greater defensive capability as well. With one slash, even the black fire around Ren's fist was suppressed. A faint sword mark appeared on the back of his hand. Renpingshing pulled back and watched closely. Yubuli's strength seemed to grow with each exchange, his presence swelling like a tidal wave. Hand over Grand Emperor Tunri's legacy, and I'll let you live, Yubuli said calmly, gripping his great sword. Renpingshing sneered and murmured under his breath, sun-devouring demon fist. In an instant, the previously faint, devouring force around him surged wildly. A black hole appeared behind him. The surrounding spiritual energy spiraled chaotically, getting sucked into the black hole. As the black hole filled, it began to condense and shrink until it was only the size of a fist. Around it, the space had completely collapsed. Spatial turbulence howled and ravaged the edges. The black hole then fused to Renpingshing's right arm, right at his fist. With a clenched right hand, Ren punched directly at Yubuli. His body shot forward like an arrow loosed from a bow. Wherever his fist passed, space shattered like fragile glass. Yubuli raised his sword to block, but the moment sword met fist, his expression changed drastically. The fist carried its own devouring force. The heavenly firmament sword intent on his blade was instantly swallowed. Crack. He heard the sound of breaking. More cracking sounds followed. Yubuli looked in horror as cracks appeared across his greatsword. The fractures spread rapidly. His heart sank. This sword was forged from a heaven-grade material. Boom! A loud shattering echoed. The great sword reached its limit and exploded under Renpingshing's strength. Renpingshing didn't stop there. His right fist, having shattered the sword, continued forward, slamming hard into Yubuli's abdomen. Yubuli felt a pain that cut to the bone. His chest caved in from the blow. Blood scattered through the air as his body was flung backward, crashing down. His robes were torn. His long hair fell loose in the wind. In that moment, Yubuli thought of many things. Was I truly wrong? Had my decisions brought disaster to the heavenly sword sect? Many say that when death approaches, a person's life flashes before their eyes like a movie. Yubuli didn't know if he was dying, but in his dazed consciousness, his memories began replaying. He remembered clearly he was born in an ordinary village. He wasn't exceptionally talented, but he'd always dreamed of becoming a great hero. He wanted to be like the legends, the stories passed down through generations. He hoped that one day, his life would be told and remembered by all. At 15, he left his parents behind, determined to join a great sect and begin his journey toward becoming a hero. But reality, in the end, was cruel. Yubuli had gone to imperial lineages and many other first- and second-rate sects, only to be rejected again and again due to various shortcomings. He remembered it clearly. It was a rainy night. He had curled up beside a large tree, crying. The path of a warrior is never smooth. An old man's voice had spoken beside him. He looked up. That night, the old man spoke to him for a long time. Before leaving, the old man smiled faintly and asked, "Do you want to cultivate?" His heart seemed to skip a beat. He nodded. overwhelmed and in disbelief. The old man brought him into the sect and accepted him as a personal disciple. Only later did Eubuli learn that the sect was called Heavenly Sword Sect, and the old man was none other than its second sect master. White Cloud Sword Master. His master had devoted his life to expanding and glorifying the Heavenly Sword Sect. At the time, Eubuli made a vow deep in his young heart. I'll make the name of the Heavenly Sword Sect resound across the entire Western region. Make those sects that once rejected me see how wrong they were. That childish dream had been full of stubborn pride and youthful defiance. But through all the years, what was rare and valuable was that he never strayed from that original vow. Yet, his talent was limited, and the sect's resources couldn't nurture warriors of true strength. Perhaps hard work really is the most humble way to reach success. So he turned his hopes toward the legacy of a grand emperor. If he could obtain such an inheritance, then, given time, even if he couldn't match an imperial lineage, he might at least be able to compete with the first-rate sects. He had massacred the Ren family and hunted Ren Pingsheng. It wasn't only Ren Pingsheng who suffered. Eubuli had suffered too. Humans aren't made of stone. Even trees and grass that reach enlightenment can feel. He and Ren Pingsheng had been close for over a decade. He wasn't heartless. He had simply chosen the sect over brotherhood. No one could understand his pain and torment, because he was the one who had raised the blade. Everything that happened, he brought it on himself. Eubuli's eyes grew blurry. If he died here, maybe that would be a kind of release. He felt so very tired. The wind howled past his ears. Just as he thought he would smash into the ground and be shattered, his body suddenly felt light, as if someone had caught him midair. He lay in a warm embrace. Eubuli looked up and saw an elderly man holding him. They stared at each other. The moment felt strangely intimate. "Grand Elder, you?" Eubuli started to speak, but the Grand Elder shook his head and said, "Don't speak. You're seriously injured. We've already brought out the ancestral coffins. Just focus on recovery," the Grand Elder said seriously. Eubuli nodded and began circulating his cultivation technique to heal his battered body. Beside Heavenly Sword Peak, several elders rushed over, carrying 2 coffins. One was black, the other white. The black coffin was engraved with the image of a sword. The white coffin was covered in floating white clouds. "Must you truly force a fight to the death with our Heavenly Sword Sect today?" the Grand Elder asked, looking up at Ren Pingsheng above. "Did he think of life and death when he slaughtered my entire family?" Ren Pingsheng shouted, face twisted in rage. His demonic aura surged even more, black mist covering half the sky. He stood high above like a devil who scorned heaven, overlooking the entire sect. "Open the ancestral coffin," the Grand Elder said firmly. He knew there was no hope for reconciliation now. He couldn't allow someone like Ren Pingsheng to live. If they didn't kill him today, he would haunt the sect like a shadow. Disciples might never dare leave the sect walls again. The elders used special methods to awaken the ancestral coffins. All disciples of the Heavenly Sword Sect dropped to their knees. "Long ago, our ancestors founded this sect, cut down mighty foes, and brought justice to chaos. Now the weak disturb your rest. Great ancestors, we ask for your help in our hour of need." The Grand Elder stood solemnly before the coffin, full of grief. He knew that every time a founder was awakened, not only did it consume large quantities of dust-blood stones, it also took several years off one's life. For those nearing the end of life, even a few seconds were precious, let alone years. As the Grand Elder finished speaking, the white coffin began to tremble. Cloud after cloud of white mist bloomed around it. Clouds drift, sorrows deepen. How many years has it been? A weary voice echoed from within the coffin. "Ancestor, it has been 200 years since you fell asleep," the Grand Elder quickly replied. As the coffin lid slowly opened, Eubuli began to tremble. He remembered clearly how, on that rainy day, the old man had brought him into the sect. That memory had been etched into his soul. White clouds bloomed one after another, spreading across the land. As they unfurled, A hush fell over everyone present. The years rolled by like a stray dog in the wind. The drifting clouds, the flowing time, everything felt as fleeting as mist. The killing intent in everyone's hearts began to soften. The world seemed peaceful just for a moment. That, could it be? Some of the senior disciples watching from afar were too stunned to speak. That's the White Cloud Swordmaster, our previous sect leader, one disciple said with a trembling voice. The White Cloud Swordmaster was a figure from centuries past. For many disciples, he existed only in the sect's historical records. But now, as the legend stood before them in the flesh, many couldn't hold back their excitement. The coffin fully opened. A white-robed elder stepped out, his hair already completely white. He radiated no oppressive aura, only calm. His smile was kind and peaceful. In his hand was a dust whisk, like a sage from another world. Though he had slumbered for centuries, his robes were spotless, as if untouched by time. If the white coffin held Ancestor White Cloud, then what about the black one? A disciple asked in confusion. Could it be? Some seemed to realize something, their eyes going wide, disbelief written on their faces. The Heavenly Sword Ancestor. Someone whispered the name with a trembling voice. The disciples couldn't help but be shocked. The Heavenly Sword Elder's impact on the sect was too great. He had personally founded the Heavenly Sword sect. Legend said he once split an entire nameless mountain with a single strike from Heavenly Sword Mountain. A breeze stirred the willows nearby, leaves fluttering as countless eyes turned toward the black coffin which had begun to tremble as well.